Okay, so welcome everybody. So this, as we'll soon see on the PowerPoint, is Shiur number 13. And yeah, Siman Tzaddik. So it says in your Kuntres, Siman Tzaddik, and it also sends you back to Tzaddik Dalid, the sif we skipped over there. We're really going to cover that next week. But there are the topic for this week and next week is the subject of nat bar nat, nesen tam bar nesen tam. Taste gets absorbed in the keli and it goes into something else. We'll soon give the definition of that. And that's the main subject of Siman Tzaddik. But we did have a number of cases in previous Simanim where we spoke about the same thing. And basically what we did was skip those sifim. So we had the sif hey in the last Siman Tzaddik Dalit that we skipped. And then the last sif was also dealing with the issue of nat bar nat. And therefore was structured to give first the this, what are the basic principles of nat bar nat, and then go back and fill in the missing pieces, housekeeping, if you want to call it that, different psukim that might appear to contradict each other or add different details. And so we will do that this week and next week, and then we'll make a sikum, because very, very applicable dinner with nat bar nat. And the lot of pratim. So just in the general scheme of things, so this is 13. So after this, we have 3 more shiurim, 14, 15, and 16. So next week we finish Tzaddik. We go back and finish the leftover parts of Tzaddik Dalet we didn't finish. And then shiur number 15 is Siman Tzaddik Vav, which is about the Harif. And then shiur 16, the last one, is the final siman, which is Tzaddik Zayin, speaks about bread that's not parv. And then we will, in Mirz Hashem, have 3 Chazorah shiurim, and then we get fahed. So there are a number of pratim that I didn't get to sometimes at the end of a shiur that are negei l'maisa. But we'll also concentrate on the Chazorah shiurim we're doing halacha l'maisa. But now let's get to the subject of nat bar nat. Okay, so let's first learn from the Gemara in Chulin, Itmar. Dogim sholu b'kaira. That is the 3-word phrase that you sort of clear in your head. Dogim sholu b'kaira is in your nat bar nat. So I'm going to explain what this means exactly. And a 3-way machlekes. What does it mean, dogim sholu b'kaira? What kind of kaira? What kind of olu? 3-way machlekes rishenim. What does it mean, dogim sholu b'kaira? But one thing is for sure, a kaira is a keli, and dogim are par. So that means the kaira was a keli that absorbed the taste of something, whether it was bosor or cholet. So the time, let's say for argument's sake, make it simple, it's a milchik, a keli. Somebody boiled milk in a boiled. There was a tam of chalav in a kaira, okay, and then you have the dogim that came in contact with the kaira, and somewhere there's heat. Where's the heat? Is it in the dogim of the kaira? Is it both? Was there bishul? Was there tzli? Okay, we'll discuss later. But we have a taste of milk that went into a kaira. And then we have a taste that went from the kaira into the dogim. So that is called nat bar nat, nesen tam, bar nesen tam, because we have a taste of milk that went into the kaira. And then we have the taste of the kaira, which is a second nesen tam, and it went from the kaira into the dogim. So what is the din of dogim sholu b'kaira? Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Rav Amar os lochem b'kutach. Okay, the case of the Gemara was Bosor. Might as well say the din, because might as well, the reason I said cholav instead of Bosor, because there's a whole discussion, since it's a sakana to have Bosor with the dogim, does the same thing go on keli? So there's a discussion, Taz has a whole discussion of this. The conclusion is it's not a problem. There are people that designate a fish pot for that reason, But lahalacha, it's not a problem. We do this all the time. We'll use the same plates that we use for fish. We'll use them for, we're not going to use the same fork without washing it, but we'll use the same fork on fish and on meat. And frying pan, people have separate frying pan. There are people that have separate fish pot. People have separate egg pot. And people have separate pots, but it's unusual they should use everything. A frying pan, they're going to have a separate one for flesh, they're going to have a separate one for fish. In any case, al pi halacha, the only case of sakana is when there's mamashas. So even though we say tam ke'ikr, which is really what we're exploring over here, we say tam ke'ikr, so the taste that's absorbed in a keli is like the food itself, and that's why we learned and we learned last week in Parshas Mates that Hagolus Kelim Midiraisa, the Gemara says, because tam ke'ikr, so the taste when the midyanim cooked their nevelas or whatever they cooked in the pots, so the tam went into the pots, and if the Yidden would cook their food, then it would be giving the tam from the keli into the food, and the food is going to become treif. So l'chor, it sounds like not barnat. Yeah, well, not barnat. No, the midyanim cooked the chazer, and the tam chazer went into the pot. The Yidden defeated Midian, and now they have a new set of kitchenware, new pots, old pots. So what's going to be? So they'll take the pot, they'll clean the pot and wash all the chazer off it, and then they'll make some chicken soup for Friday night. Shame. What's going to be? So the taste of the chazer is going to go from the pot into the soup. So it's not parnat. It's nice and tam, parnas and tam. It's an issa deraisa. So what are they discussing? If it's an issa deraisa, what in the world are Rav and Shmuel arguing about it for? So the reason is pashut. Not parnat has a last name. Not parnat is its first name. The last name of not parnat is not parnat lahetera. Not parnat lahetera. Okay, you can't have lisura. No, not parnat. By Yisr, there's no not parnat. This whole thing is we're talking about it. It's Bosor. Bosor is mutter. So therefore, we're talking not parnat latera. By the time the tam Bosor went into the dogim, so it's not parnat, but it's not parnat latera. There's no Isser yet. Okay. So I just want to make this clear. It's simple, but sometimes people skip it because it's so obvious and get confused later on down the road. If you have we learned inside the Gimel, you have a pot that you cooked milk in the pot. You're not allowed to cook meat in the pot. Let's take it the other way around. Let's say you cook meat in the pot. Then you have a fleishka pot, a banyeme. What happens? You cook milk in that pot. What happens to the milk? What's it in? No? Everybody hears me?
Also.
Awesome. And what's with the pot?
Also awesome.
Awesome. Also awesome. Everything's awesome. You're going to tell me not parnat. Not parnat. You're not parnat. You cooked meat in the pot. The tam bosor went into the pot. Nice and tam. Okay. Now you cook milk in the pot. So the taste comes out from the pot into the milk. It's not parnat. Not parnat. It's clear that it's also one the world of Rav and Shmuel arguing about. Because that's not parnat, not parnat latera. That's not parnat lisura. The second tam that comes, the tam bosor, which was in the pot that comes into the cholav, is now us. It's bosor b'cholav. Not parnat latera. If it would be dogim, it would be pasta, it would be water. So it's not parnat latera. Okay, so then that's not what Rav and Shmuel are arguing about. That's not parnat lisura. Okay, we're talking about not parnat latera. What's the dogim shola b'kaira? If you take a flesh pot and you cook milk in it, we learn inside the Gimel that it's also. So let's first read the Gemara. So Rav Amar also lacham b'kutach. So those dogim which have a not parnat taste of bosor, you're not allowed to eat it with kutach. Kutach is a milchik dip. Shmuel Amar mut lacham b'kutach. He says it's okay. What's the machlekes? Rav Amar aser. Why? Neisen tamu. That is because it's giving taste. There's nice and tam, there's tam bosor in the dogim, and then you can't eat it with kutach because the car has tam bosor in it. B'shuma lamer mutter nice and tam, bar nice and tam. That is not parnat. It's not nice and tam. It's not parnat. And what's the din? Omer chiski and mishum abai hilchas the dogim sha'olo b'kaira mutter lachlam b'kutach. The paskin like Shmuel that not parnat latera is mutter. Okay, which doesn't really help us. Because we still didn't learn what it means, dogim shola b'kaira. What exactly happened to these dogim? And what kind of kaida we're talking about? We're talking about a plate. We're talking about a pot. What kind of kaida? And what does it mean? All where were they? The dogim were flying. They went up into a kaida. What in the world happened over there? So we don't know how to apply this din, but we know we have a din. If it's not banat latera, it's mutter. Is it l'chatchila? Is it b'diavad? Just by the way, that we're usually medayik, and so too over here we're medayik, that when dinim are said, whether in the Shulchan Aruch and Gemara, that there's a difference between l'chatchila and b'diavad. Right, you have the beginning of the Masechta Seita, which is Gemara. You make sure everybody learned at least the first mission, the first line of Seita. Everybody learned, yeah. Hamakana leishte. So the Gemara is Hamakana b'diavidin l'chatchila lo. It says somebody who was makana leishte doesn't say makana leishte that you're allowed to be makana leishte. Hamakana, if it happened that he was makana leishte, it's loshen shel b'diavad. What's dogim shol b'kayit is loshen shel l'chatchila, loshen b'diavad. L'chatchila, it's telling you what to do. B'diavad, it's telling you a story, something happened. What's dogim shol b'kayit?
B'diavad.
B'diavad, yeah, it's telling you a story. I'll give on a ma'isa, dogim shol b'kayit. They want to know what to do with it. Can I eat it with kutach? Yeah, so Shmuel said, the next line of the Gemara, I'm going to read, even though we're not going to talk about it until later. But while we're here, we might as well learn it. Snein shachot basaking, shachotach babasar. That we have a special din by Dover Charif. So it's going to mention it over here in our simon. But the place, the arichas is going to be in the next simon. Tzadik Vav is all about Dover Charif. And the special chumrah is by Dover Charif. So it's named shachot basaking, shachotach babasar. So if you have a knife and you use it to cut hot meat, and therefore this knife has the taste of basar in it. Okay, we had a whole discussion about over gush, but let's say it was an accleration, just to make life simple. Everybody holds is a blia that the tam basar went into the knife, and now you cut a radish with it, and a radish is a dover charif. So you want to know, are you allowed to eat a bakutach? So you're going to tell me like this: the meat over there went to the kaira, then the kaira, tam kaira went into the dog. Fine. Now we traded in the kaira for a sakin, and we traded in the fish for radishes. Wasn't such a great deal, but halachically it's the same thing. So now what are we thinking? So the tam went from the meat into the sakin, went into the knife, is the tam rish, and now the tam went in because it's a davar charif. It's going to go even if it's cold from the knife into the radish. Yeah, so that's not bar not letera. Yeah, look, it sounds like not bar not letera. It sounds like the same case as dogma shol bakaira. Yeah. So what should be the din? The din should be mutlach lebakutach. But what's the din? Is that snei shchatuk b'sag shchatuk b'bot also lach lebakutach? You're not allowed to be bakutach. Why not? So this whole nascent time issue is a complicated issue. Okay, and I'll explain just a little bit outside, and then it'll help us, I think, get oriented towards the entire subject. Okay, I'll give it in Civ base. We're going to talk about an egg. An egg is the shell of the egg going to make something a nut for nut. Let's say you take an egg and you put it inside the cholent. An egg with the shell you put inside the cholent. Yeah, it's a recipe. Now, is that egg inside nut for nut latera? Is that the same as we say? Can we treat the shell of the egg like a keli? In other words, say like this: the taste of the meat, dogim shol b'kayit went to a keli, and then from the keli it went into the dogim. Over here, the taste of the meat went into the shell, and from the shell it went into the it went into the egg. Okay, so the din is no, that's not called nat par nat. Shells are porous. What exactly the definition of porous is? It's a rashba. The Taz has a whole discussion of it. It's literally holes, or it just goes through. The rashba says, listen, you'll take an egg and you'll boil it in water with dye in it, so the color goes straight through. That's not called nat par nat. Add some time, goes straight through. So there are times that it looks like nat par nat, and it's not. because the taste itself, the yesod of this whole concept is brought down from the Ran, and I keep mentioning to the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe and Bosor b'Cholav. So I'm just keeping you in suspense. Everybody should stay till the end of the course, because it's a big Chiddush, but it really comes out very clear in the dinim of Natbar. And the Alter Rebbe quotes the Ran, all the Mefarshim quote it. Everybody quotes the Ran. The Ran says that when something is a nascent tam, we say tam ke'ikr. What's the chafadimya ke'ikr? Because nascent tam, it becomes a tam kolush. It gets weakened to a certain extent. It's a tam kolush. So therefore, you have more than 24 hours, and ben yemei. So now it's only midrabanan. There's no issur d'oraisa anymore. You leave a leftover piece of meat for 24 hours, it's still also midrabanan. But since it's tam, so even though we say tam ke'ikr and have the power of answering something minatera, but nevertheless it became somewhat weakened, and therefore some of the dinim changes. The tam kolish, says the Ran. So then when this tam goes from the first tam into the second tam, it becomes even more kolish. And just by the way, if it went from the second tam into a third, it becomes even more kolish. It's a tam kolish. But sometimes there's no tam kolish here. Here, what was ever in the pot, the meat goes like straight through the walls of the eggshell. And so too by davar charif, davar charif has the power that'll be meshach ikaratam, not just a nascent tam. It's like the thing itself got absorbed. As a result, the davar charif pulls out the etzamatam, so there was no natbarnat. And that's why it's also loch lebekutach. I'm going to have other cases like that. We're going to see exceptions to the rule. And natbarnat, ad mosai, that it should be considered a natbarnat. And where do we draw the line? That's going to be many of the dinim over here. So it's 9. We're not going to get to it a little later, but I thought I would quote it over here because it gives us the general concept. See what's in the chat. Natbarnat lehatera dehatera. I'm not sure. I have to look back. Somebody asked me at the beginning of this, it's a bosor b'cholav, bosor v'cholav. But it was over here, somebody asked, was it a bosor b'cholav? Yeah. I look back. It's printed both ways. Shame. I don't know. I have to look back now. Fine. That everyone said, we say b'diavad. B'diavad. The Rabbi says, no such thing as b'diavad. It's b'diavad. B'diavad, as if it happened. Okay? Still, the world says b'diavad. I think that is Yisrael, they say b'diavad. Okay, so this is the basic din of natbarnat. The shaila is, what does it mean dogim shola b'kaira? Okay, so now we know the din. We know the din. The dogim shola b'kaira, you're allowed to eat it with kutach. Okay, but what's dogim shola b'kaira? We don't know. Okay, so before I go further, I just want to explain one more thing. Okay, and I brought some props over here. I brought a kaf or a pot, a little show and tell over here. I didn't fill it up with water. I'll just make a whole big mess. Okay, so instead of using dogyam, we'll use it's a little neater to use a kaf. Okay, so let's say this is a fleshka pot. Okay, and you cooked water in this pot. Okay, and now I stick a spoon in the water. How many nascent tam is there? We got the taste of the bosor went into the pot. That's taste number 1. Then we got the taste of the pot that went into the water. That's taste number 2. Then if I put this inside the water, then that's taste number 3. So it's 3 knots. It's 1 knot, 1 nascent tam from the original meat that made this population. Then tam number 2 is from the pot into the water, and tam number 3 is from the water into the spoon. So it's 3 knots. It's not barnat. Ainakul. Not barnat.
Which one is going where? Who's being belay this?
Let's say it's a parva spoon. There's no tam in it. It's brand new spoon. I put it inside the water. So it doesn't have any time to be pilot b'chla. It's only being belay right now. The dogim are also parva. I might as well stick, if it was, I was thinking of bringing a fish and I'll just dunk the fish inside, but it's, I think the B'nai bias would object. Anyways, take a spoon. So let's say there's a brand new spoon, doesn't have anything to be pilot, has no tam, nothing. Okay, so it's going to be balea, but it's going to be balea tam shlishi. Okay. Now, let's say I would take, you know what? We'll pretend it's a fish. Full shape of the fish over here. It's got a long tail. We'll take this fish, and instead of just sticking it in the water, forget about water. We'll keep this thing dry and we'll fry the fish without any oil. I don't have any oil. It's Pesach. I don't have any oil. I'm going to take the fish. I'm going to put it right over here, straight over here, and it's going to belay us straight. Okay. So then, how many timim are there? One from the meat into the pot, and then from the pot into the fish. So it's 2 timim. So therefore, is there a difference between, let's say, roasting a fish or boiling a fish? The difference? How many timim are there if I boil a fish? 3. How many timim are if I roast a fish without any liquid? 2. Very good. That's very good. I hold up your fingers, get into it. Fine.
Why is there 2 if you're roasting it?
Because there's no intermediary. It went straight from I put the fish straight on the surface of the pot. I fried it without any liquids, let's say.
Okay.
So it went straight in. There was nothing to intervene. And just by the way, let's say this touched the keli. Let's say the fish touched the wall. Is that 2 timim or 3 timim? Good question, huh? Okay, the Mefarshim going to talk about it. The Rishonim talk about it. Understand? Okay. One last thing. Now let's say, forget about pots. Let's take a plate. Pretend this is a plate. So here's a plate. It's a fleshik plate. What's a kaira, by the way? How do you say a pot in Lashon Kodesh? Pot is a kadera. Yeah. What's a kaira? Kaira is a plate, a bowl, something like this. Okay, here's a plate. Let's say we take our dogim and we put on a kaira. Let's say they're both cold. We're worried about anything? How are not worried about anything? It could be a piece of meat, piece of cheese. You do a dach and weiter gefahren, unless we have one of the problems we discussed in Sadik Aleph. Fine. If they're both hot, we understand we have more issues. But let's say the fish was hot and the plate was cold. What's the din? The togava, yeah?
There's no blia.
Huh?
There's no blia.
They clip them.
There's no blia normally. We say tatogaver because the bottom one is cold, but it takes a little time to cool off this fish, right? So what's going to happen in the interim? We say balea porta, and you have to take the clipper from the fish. The miyakar kabbalah, we said in Sadik Aleph, that even though it's tatogaver and this one is cold, this one is hot, but it's still going to absorb a little bit. It takes a while to cool off. The other way around, if the bottom was hot and the top was cold, we say tatogaver, and it's like it's cooking. It's the same as cooking it in a pot. Not the same as cooking in a pot. The tatogaver, it's similar to cooking in a pot, but it's not mamish the same as cooking in a pot. Okay. So now,
Depends where the plate is. The plate is on top of the fire.
Oh, plate on top of the fire. We'll call it a pot. Okay, good. So now we're going to have the 3-way machlekes of what is it talking about dogim sha'olo b'kaira. So I just gave you all the possibilities, but just explained the reasoning behind the possibilities. Okay, so I got to take this, take all the people off the screen. You'll pardon me for shouldn't be a bit of clothing. So there's the Rivan. The Rivan, I think the Rabbi Yaakov Bar Nosson. He was the son-in-law of Rashi. And the Rashi was nifter in the middle of his Pirush Masechta Makkas. There was a point in Masechta Makkas that says this. Rashi was nifter here, and the rest of the Pirush Rashi on the Makkas was written by the Rivan. He married one of Rashi's daughters. He says that he heard this from Rashi, this psak. The Neisa Kalim said they look on Rashi. It doesn't really look like this, but for sure the Rivan said this. And he's considered among the Balatesvis, brought other things too. In any case, he says Dogim Sha'ola B'Kaira is talking about a plate. Dogim Sha'ola B'Kaira. Dogim Sha'achre B'Shulam Beidem Reischim Hinichu Eisam B'Klibasa. Klibasari. There was a fleshka plate. Okay? The fleshka plate was soon going to learn was cold. The fish was still hot. And Dogim Sha'olu B'Kaira. And that's the case that we say not barnat. Latera. Okay? That's the case that the Gemara is saying that it's mutter. And by the way, when the Gemara said it, the Gemara was talking about lechatchila b'diavad, by the way. No, b'diavad. When is it?
She'olu.
She'olu, it's a story, exactly. So it's b'diavad. So when is the case that the Rebbe says it's mutter? What's the Gemara talking about? It's talking about it went into a plate, went to a fleishika plate. Okay? What's worth, a fleishika plate or broiling it? Or cooking it? Obviously, those are worse. So the Rebbe that says that the Gemara is mat to this, it's going to come out, according to him, that cooking it or roasting it is going to be also even b'diavad. When did the Gemara say it's mutter b'diavad? Also, at least it's b'diavad, it's mutter. When do we say not barnat is mutter? And the whole din of barnat, we're going to say over here b'diavad. Okay, according to Rebbe, he's very machmer. He says that the only case that the Gemara allowed was that. Along comes Taisus, and the Rosh say, no. It's talking about it was cooked. It was cooked in the Kaira. Dogm he's bashlu im nezlim b'kli basari. So it was a fleshka keli take, but then they cooked. So therefore, how many timing were there? Since there was liquid over there, there were 3 timing because there was taste that a Bosor went into the pot, made it a fleshka keli, and then it went into the liquid that was used to cook the fish. That's the second time, and then it went from the liquid into the fish. It's the third time. So that's the case that the Gemara was talking about, and therefore, according to that, the Rivon's case is for sure mutter. What would be the case when it's roasted? If it's roasted, then it's only 2 timing. According to Taisvis and the Rosh, when did the Gemara allow it b'diavad? When there were how many timing? When there were 3 timing. So what's going to be the din when there's only 2 timing? According to Taisvis and the Rosh, it could be Aser. Gemara didn't matter that. But along comes the Rambam to the rescue. And as the Shach points out, and Beis Yosef, the Reiv Poskim, the Rishonim, the Rashba, and the Rand, and all list of Rishonim also hold like the Rambam. And it's talking even if they're only 2 times. I feel a dog machine needs lubasir basari. Believe me. So even if there was no liquid in between and it's only 2 timing, mamish, that's what the Gemara says. Neisin tam, bar neisin tam. We don't have a 3 timing. That's what it's talking about. Poshta pshat in the Gemara, that the not that the Gemara is talking about when it's cooked, and therefore everything's mutter according to the Rambam. So I made a chart. Actually, I took another chart. I hope this comes out okay. I'll just fill the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. I took another chart, and okay, it's supposed to come out in a different order. But you have over here, let's empty it out here. So you have the Rivan, who says the Gemara is only talking about the case where it was a plate. Okay? And therefore, anything other than that is going to be prohibited. Taisus and the Rosh say it's talking about a case of bishul with a 3 timing. The Rambam and the Rav Poskim say that it's talking about a case of tzli where there's only 2 timing, not barnat, like the Gemara says. So what's going to be the din? Let's just talk it through. Let's say, what's the din? Halas meichel paver esech b'kli b'sori. So you took a plate. So according to the Rivan, what's the Rivan going to hold? He's going to hold that's the case that's mutter. Okay, what's going to be bishul and sli? Bishul and sli going to be asif. According to the Taisus and the Rosh, they say the Gemara is talking about the case of bishul, the second case. So what's going to be sli? Sli is going to be asif. The plate, kolshkin, is going to be mutter. Okay, but according to the Rambam, it's talking even the case of 2 timing. Kolshkin, if it's bishul, and kolshkin v'kal v'chaymer. If it was not even a regular cooking, from Tatogava. So therefore, the Rivan is going to be makel only in the case where there was a plate. And just to remind you, once again, that this whole thing is only talking about b'diavad. Then he'll be matter b'diavad the case that was in a plate, but he's going to answer when there was really only a dogma sha'olabak. He's learning literally all the b'kaida. It's mamash akaida. And then he's going to be matter. The other case is going to be he's going to ask it. Taisus and the Rosh say that if it's bishul, it was cooked there 3 timing, be matter 3 timing. But sliva, there's only 2 timing. You're going to ask it. But the Rambam learns that the dogm shola b'kaida. The Gemara says not barnat is okay b'diavad. So not barnat is okay b'diavad. Who says you need 3 timing? So therefore, the Rambam and the Rav Poskim, they're going to say that even sli is okay. and more so bishul is okay, which is 3 timim, and then you have a chmaisa from tatogava, then it's for sure it's okay. It's not even bishul. Questions? Let's say first take the chat. First go to the chat, and I read the chat. Yeah, when you say that the hatayr is when there's a question, do you mean whether it'll make something milchak or fleshik? The question is now that this thing has tam bosor in it, are you allowed to eat it with milchik? Why does it make a difference if the olah b'kaira is l'chatchila or b'diavad? We have to keep in mind, we're going to say that when we're going to say the din, we're going to know the people know them. Not parnat is okay. Not parnat is okay. What? You're allowed to do not parnat.
But the question is anything that's parv. So if it's parv, does it have tam or not? Why does it make a difference if you did it l'chatchila or b'diavad? The question is, can you eat it now with something else? Not
only that, let's say you don't have. Okay, you know what? We'll make this a question we'll answer by the end of today's shiur. I was in a yeshiva once, and the yeshiva was very, very tight on funding, to put it mildly. Okay, the food situation was very, very interesting. Okay, we looked in the kitchen, and we see that the kugel for Shabbos is being baked in milchik pans. So, praise, not Barnat, Teira, Aina Ben Yem, went to Rosh Hashiva. What's going on over here? Our Shabbos kugel is being baked in milchik pans. So he said, Chavre, you get older, you learn your Yeridea. There's nothing else. It's either this or there's no kugel. There's no baking pans. There's no money. Nobody's going to buy new baking pans. And that's it. There's no other choice. Okay? For that matter, you want to bake a parva cake and you only have fleishik oven, you have to mamish kasher it. You don't have to mamish kasher it. What's the din? So there's a question whether you're allowed to do this l'chatchila or not. So you don't do it l'chatchila. If it happened, then it happened. Next message, or this was a direct message. You can post it publicly. Everybody can see what you're talking about. Just to clarify, this 3 of machlokas on whether when we go ahead to mix it with there, what about already got mixed with the Ram said. But the good question, we're going to learn everything. We're going to learn. This is all introduction. We didn't learn anything inside yet. This is just to make things clear for the background, and now things should go much smoother. Okay, so here's the din, nice and tam or nice and tam. So here we have the meat. This is the first meat. So you see it spread tam into the walls of the kedera, and now we have a flesh kapat. See now everything turned orange. We have a flesh kapat. That's I guess the simon for a flesh kapat. That's tam number 1. Tam rishon. Tam bosor nivul b'sei chasir. What's with tam number 2? So you boiled something parv inside. So the case of the Gemara dogim shola b'kaira. Okay, and here we're using a pot. So this is going to go according to either Taisus or Rambam. Okay, pasta. So you cook pasta, so it's parv. And this is everyday shaylas. They come up constantly. They cook the soup and a parv in fleishik pot. They made a parva Michael pasta in the fleishik pot, and then somebody reheated it and put cheese inside. Yeah, so they thought it was parva spaghetti, and it was parva spaghetti. It was cooked in the fleishik pot. So that's what we're going to learn about today. Not parnat. How far does that help you? L'chatchila, b'diavad, b'nyeme, ain't b'nyeme. What's going on over here? So that's the tam sheni. That's the not parnat. So tam bosor shabasir nivla b'pasta. Okay, so that's already not parnat latera. Why? Because this pasta is mutter. The pasta is parv. So it has tam bosor. Okay, you have fleishik pasta. There's fleishik pasta. How fleishik is it? Not parnat fleishik. Not parnat fleishik. So it's not parnat latera. If it would be milk you were cooking in the pot, we'll learn inside the gimmels, and this is the rice. It's also about no. Not called not parnat. It's not parnat lisura, not parnat latera. So now the shaila it says mutlot. You're allowed to eat it with kutach. Okay, you're allowed to do it, or if it's mutter, if it was already made. So somebody that already made the macaroni and cheese is one thing. Are they allowed to, can I use this with macaroni and cheese? And the answer is no. But okay, we'll soon see. Where's the b'diavad? There's lichatchil and b'diavad is a little tricky over here, because if it was already cooked in the fleishik pot and it already absorbed the nat parnat, we could also say to a certain extent that's b'diavad. You didn't mix it with cheese yet. If it was already mixed with the cheese, then that's for sure b'diavad. But maybe this is already b'diavad. Maybe you're not allowed to do it lechatchila, means you can't put the pasta in the pot in order to make it later on eat it with cheese. Okay, we're gonna get to that. Fine. And where's the tam shlishi? The tam shlishi, there we go. There we got the cheese. Went into the pasta. So that's going to be the last name. Tam Bosor b'pasta nifshtim cholav. So then first, tam Bosor is going to meet cholav only over here after it's the tam sheni. Okay, so if this not parnat is already latera, so it's already mutter. So it's mutter lachlan mikutach. That's exactly what he's doing. He's eating with kutach. Okay, it's not kutach, cheese. They're allowed to eat it with milchiks. That's what Shmuel said. The Rav says it's aser, Shmuel says it's mutter, and then they didn't like Shmuel. Okay, but the shaila is they're talking about even cooking, so not the Rambam passes like that. What would be according to the Rivan? This case over here that it was cooked. What would the Rivan say? The Rivan said that the dogam shoulder b'kairas only was on a plate, not if it was cooked. What would the Rivan say? You're allowed to eat this Michael on the left-hand side of the. You're allowed to eat this spaghetti with the cheese, according to the Rivan.
No, it was cooked.
No, because it was cooked. He only it's matter. So to just keep everybody give the general picture over there. So the Machaber paskins like the Rambam Lakula, and the Ramah says you have to do like the Rivan. Okay, but we'll soon see. Not only soon, we'll see right now. So now Sif Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch. Dogim sheniz bashlu. Oy shenitzlu. The kedera shel Bosor. Look what happened over here. Look how kind the Machaber was. He took dogim shel b'kaira and he touched up into the lashon of the. This is why when you start off learning Shulchan Aruch, this is just another advertisement for learning the Torah and the Beis Yosef. Over here in this the Havinei, we do the work for you beforehand, okay? But here, look what happened over here. When people start learning the Shulchan Aruch, if you start from the Shulchan Aruch, you say, okay, it's a damn dogam sheniz bashlu nidus b'kedera shel Bosor. Here, if you learn this three with machlekes and you read these words, we can spring in. Look what the Machaber did over here. He took the Rambam and he put it into the words dogam shel b'kaira. He switched the kaira for a kedera, and he switched the olu into this bashlu nitzlu. So we see he's passing like the Rambam, okay? Because it was cooked. Which in the case of Nisbashul, there's 3 timim. Nitzlu, even if there are only 2 timim, because it was roasted straight on the keli. So the tam went from the Bosor into the keli, and from the keli straight into the dogim. Yeah. So it's Nisbashul, Nitzlu b'kedera shel Bosor. So as long as there's no mamashas, then it's then the Gemara says it's mutter. Nobody's arguing with that. The Shaila is what the Gemara is talking about. So he says they're passing like the Rambam. Now you got to make sure. The Machaber puts in over there from other Rishonim, the Rosh, others, that you got to make sure there's no mamashas. And we're not talking there's mamashas, it's a different story. We're just talking about its time. We're not talking about mamash. It's got to be a clean keli. It has to be a rechutza yafa. She'ein shum and davikba. There's not any fat stuck to it. The flesh keli, hard to clean. So if it's a clean keli and it was kedera shel Bosor moter lachan b'kota. You're allowed to eat it with milchiks, mishum davin nice and tam, bar nice and tam, dehatera. You see it that way. Not panat letera. It's not panat letera. So, and again, the Machaber is giving you a lashon of lechatchila, a lashon of b'diavad. He's telling you a story to Machaber, or he's telling you what you're allowed to do?
Both.
Telling you a story. What happened? Somebody came to the base here. He said, I have dogim sheniz bashlo shenitz b'kedera shel Bosor. Am I allowed to eat it with kutach? He says, he doesn't say you're allowed to cook dogim in a kedera shel Bosor al manas lachlan b'kutach. That he doesn't say. He doesn't say. The Gemara says it's only b'diavad. V'im leha yisor rechutza yafa. What's the din if it wasn't well washed? So then you have to measure him. Im yesh b'mamash al pi kedera yesh mechem b'shishim b'dogim also lachlan b'kutach. If the mamashis is more than shishim, then it's going to be also used with kutach. It's a fleishige keg. The shaila is whether you're allowed to b'chal eat these dogim, because you've been sakana. It's a nice kalim say he's talking about bosor b'chal. He's not talking about sakana now. You can't eat bosor together with dogim. Then the shaila is only whether they were cooked together or only if it's shuman. Anyway, but we're not talking about sakana over here. That's later on Yeridei, where it speaks about Vorim Masurim Mishum Sakana. This is only talking about Bosor B'chalav. So you're not allowed to eat it with kutach. You want to know whether you can eat it by itself? Then you go and ask over there on the other sip.
Why
Question.
can't he taste it?
Huh?
Why doesn't the mechaber say to taste it?
Maybe that's why. I'm not sure.
No, to taste the fish.
Yes. If you can say that's a very good question. I don't know. Yeah, not sure. L'chorah should be able to taste it, see if there's tambasa and stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure. But along comes the Rambam. Yeah, and he says, "Yesh machmirim b'tzliu bishul." Those are a machmer b'tzli and bishul. Less are neisin tam bar neisin tam. And who is that? The Rivon. B'shem Rashi. Oro. Morchei or Zeruk for it. Okay. So the middle opinion is not being quoted over here. So the Mechaber brings down the lenient opinion, like the Rambam and the other Rishonim. The Ramah didn't tell you yet how he paskins. He brings down the Yesh Machmirin, it's Li Bishul, because there's the Rivon disagrees with the Rambam to the other extreme. So in other words, just to make it clear that according to the Rambam, the Gemara is talking about all three cases, whether it was put on a plate, or it was cooked, or it was roasted. All three cases the Gemara is talking about. So all of them are mutabidiyah. The Rivon says no. Dogim shola b'kayit is talking about a plate, and that's the only case that's mutter, and bishul and sli are also. Okay, so there's two opinions. So what do we do? The Rambam says, so lechatchila, we're going to pass on like the Rivon. But b'diavad, if it already happened, then you're going to be allowed to do it. What are you telling me? The whole Gemara was talking about b'diavad. What kind of minig? It's dinner the Gemara to answer lechatchila. The whole dogim shola b'kayit is only a dinner b'diavad. So the union of lechatchila is you're not allowed to eat it with kutach. It was already mixed into the kutach, then it's b'diavad. And then b'cholin, it doesn't matter whether it was on a plate or whether it was bishul or whether it was sli. The Rambam will b'diavad. We will rely on the Rambam. Clear? Hope so.
Yershleimer, the reason why he doesn't say that you should taste it is because he's already eating the kutach, and now he wants to know if he can eat that fish.
What do you mean? He's going to wait an hour after the kutach?
He's sitting there, he's eating the kutach, and now the fish was cooked in this pot or whatever, and now he wants to know if he can eat the fish that was already cooked with the kutach that he started eating already.
Okay, good. So it's b'diavad. Okay, good. So maybe it's already mixed into the kutach.
He can rinse his mouth.
Does it? Yeah, could be. Okay. So here you have on the right you have a bishul, on the left you have a sli. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins like the Rambam, moto lach l'cholav, that there's no problem eating either of these with cholav. And the Ramah said l'chatchila, you shouldn't do both of them. If it's already got mixed up, so that's the b'diavad that he's going to be matter b'diavad. Then we're going to rely on the Rambam. Now along comes the Marshal, and he's machalik. He says, listen, b'diavad, I will allow 3 neisin tams, but 2 neisin tams I'm going to ask even b'diavad. That's going too far. So in a way, it's like the Das HaTeisves was machalik between bishul and sli. So bishul, you could read over here. Marshal, bishul also lachlim chala b'diavad mutter. Okay, but sliya can b'diavad also kishnes out of b'chol. He's going to ask it sli even b'diavad. So Ramah is going to be matter both of them, and the Marshal is going to answer the sli, and the Shach quotes the Marshal. And it's interesting, the Shach is not just telling you, interesting facts. You should know that the Marshal asked sleeve in B'diavad. But Pashtus, he doesn't say, the Shach, he doesn't say, the Tzorach La'achmek Marshal, but the mere fact that he quotes the Marshal, and he didn't say that we don't do like the Marshal, it indicates you should be Cheshush L'das Marshal. And although roasting might seem to be an unusual case, as we soon shall see, because as you see in the upper left-hand corner, we're going to learn Aleph and Beis together. Because this Ramah, see, it's a little secret over here. This is a little bit of editing. This Hagah, the Ramah is on Sif Beis, not on Sif Aleph. The Ramah doesn't say this on Sif Aleph. He says it on Sif Beis. He's just putting it together because the Ramah lets you learn Machaber Aleph Beis together, and then he unloads on you what he really holds. This is only part of the Ramah. It's just taking out the part that's relevant, so you just get the din of the basic basic machlekes. Okay, but the Shach quotes this Marshal. According to Ramah, the paskins like Rivan, yeah. They one lachatchila put a hot part of a food on flesh account and then to eat it with dairy. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna have to leave questions for later. We got a lot to learn before we get to that. Okay, you have a din of shtei kedetas. It's very good that we're going to mix things together, but that case we have to return to our din of shtei kedetas nagazu bazu. We have to know whether there was liquid in between or not. It's a good question, but we have to go a little further. We had a lot to learn, and it's already 10 to 8. So I made myself a schedule over here, and I'm way behind, but I'm not so bothered by it really, because I'd rather you understand, but we have to move a little bit. So I think I'm going to leave the questions for later. Okay, so here's some pasta. And we say, L'chatchila, L'choladeyas also, L'vashul parva b'kliv b'sari, al-manas l'achlim cholad. This slide is going to define for us what does it mean b'diavad. Okay, b'diavad, that it's also l'chatchila. What's also l'chatchila? The Gemara says also l'chatchila. I mean, the Gemara didn't say, but the Gemara said dog b'shol b'kayra lo b'shol b'diavad. So obviously l'chatchila is also. What's l'chatchila also? You cannot put the dogim into the kaira in order to eat it with the kutach. That you're not allowed to do. So l'chatchila, everybody agrees that you're not allowed to do it almanas. And just by the way, in the Chayveres, he brings down over there that there's a Bedek Abayis, which is a later additions from the Beis Yosef. They wrote over there. There's a Yalkut Yosef that wants to bring that Mechaber wants to the matter even l'chatchila. Anyway, general is not accepted. That we normally say l'chatchila to do it, having intention to eat it with Bosor is asur. Now, Shasat Chak and B'diavad and Yeshiva, and there's no other baking pans, different story. But normally, l'chatchila, then you say if you don't have something, it's often equals that itself makes it a B'diavad if you don't have any other baking pans. If you don't have another oven or something like this, might be B'diavad, Shasat Chak, different cases. So now, in Bishul Parva B'kliv B'sori, let's say now you already cooked the noodles in the flesh kapat. Okay, so now you have your natpanat. You did the natpanat already. So the Shulchan Aruch passing like the Rambam, no problem. But the Ramah says, it's also you can't. Everybody holds you can't cook it having in mind you don't cook your macaroni for the macaroni and cheese in a flesh kapat. That everybody agrees. If it was already cooked, to the Shulchan Aruch says not bernat latera. It's okay, passing like the Rambam. Dogim shola b'kaira, passing like Shmuel, mutalachon bekutach. Put the cheese into the macaroni. But the Ramah says no. L'chatchila we passing like the Rivan. So you cannot. Too bad. You cannot use these noodles. Make other noodles, and you make other macaroni. You make your macaroni and cheese. Now what happens? Already got the diavish parva is partial b'kli b'sari. What happens if the parva that got cooked with the flesh of kekeli, the macaroni, the spaghetti got cooked in the flesh of kapat? Is arivim chola, but already got mixed together. But then you can eat it. The Ramah agrees. The Ramah says if it's already b'diavad, it got mixed together. You don't need to throw it in the garbage. Okay, and we'll pass like the Rambam. Okay. Now let's learn Sif Beis, which is really a continuation of the din it's a little bit of a variation. I already gave this to you outside, but the important thing that Ramah discusses Aleph and Beis together. So let's you know what? While we have this over here, let's just read the Mechaber. Beisishin is bashla b'mayim b'kedera chaleves. An egg that was boiled in a milchaka pot. So this is the same thing as sefalef, basically. That's what it looks like, right? You have an egg instead of a fish, and instead of a flishka pot, it's a milchaka pot. Yeah. So here we have the egg which was cooked in a milchaka pot. Now, you want to take this egg and you want to stick it inside a chicken. They used to put egg inside the chicken and roast it, whatever the case is. You're allowed to do it. Says the Mechaber, you're allowed to put it inside the chicken, even lechatchila. Why is that? Where's the nat bar nat? It was like the Mechaber already said, nat bar nat is okay. It was already cooked. Again, he didn't say you can cook the egg. He's a lashon shabediyah, but he's telling you a story. To tell you a story, beitzishin is bashla b'mayim. Okay, it happens. Okay, so it happens. So it's not barnat. So there's the tam cholav went into the kedera, let's say. Excuse me. The cholav went into the kedera, and that's tam number one, and then from the kedera went into the egg. Even if you put the egg straight on the bottom, it would be 2 times. Then it says it's 3 times because it went into the water and then went into the bay. So it's anyway, it's 3 knots, but even it would be 2 knots. It's okay, not by knot. Okay, as long as to do it lechatchila, not hold is okay. In Bosor, but if you put it inside the cholent, even if it had the shell, also you're not allowed to eat it. Why not? That's what I explained to you before. This is not barnat anymore. This is not barnat. There's meat in there. There's a cholent here with meat inside. So the tam Bosor, it's a one big fleishka meichel. Because even though it's got a shell, we don't treat the shell like a keli, and it's not barnat from the meat into the shell, and from the shell into the egg, it's not barnat. It goes straight through the shell, and like the Rashba says, you see, it changes color. Okay, and here's the proper place for the Ramah that we just learned. Okay, we had it in the previous slide as if it was on Sefalef. It wasn't. This is where it really was taken from. Yesh machmirim b'tzliu bishul lesom neisen tam, but neisen tam the Rivan. This is the Rivan we just had before that the Ramah says, brings down the strict opinion. This is just a repetition. We just read it before. It's good. We had Chazara now. The Chatchila, we do like the Rivan, and we say you're not allowed to eat a bakutach, even if it was just cooked in water. Not barnat. Is only going to be good in the case of a plate, says the Rivan, and not if it's cooked. But b'diavad mutar b'chalinyan, it's okay. We pass like the Rambam, it's okay. If it was cooked, it was sleep, fine. You can eat it with kutach. Excuse me. If it was already mixed with kutach, then you can eat it with the kutach. And now the Ramah continues, and we're going to have maybe we'll learn the summary before we learn the Ramah. That's generally the Seder. Okay. Mikrim sheyesh lahakal ladas Ramah. The Ramah has a few cases. We're going to say it's going to be okay. That it's going to be mutar. It's going to be mutar b'diavad. But that we're going to be making. That's talking about eating with kutach, eating the egg with the chicken, or the Ramah is not going to allow you to put this egg inside the chicken. He's not going to allow you to eat this fish with kutach. Yeah. Okay, no, we're not machmer on the kelim. So in other words, dogim shoulder b'kaira. So you have now the fish was cooked in a flesh kapat. Fish is cooked in a flesh kapat. More common case. You cook some spaghetti. Cook some spaghetti in a flesh kapat. Dogim shoulder b'kaira. Fine. Says the Ramah oslachal b'kut. So you're not allowed to eat it lechatchila. Can't eat it with cheese. You have to put it in a flesh plate, or can you put it in a milk plate? So al pi din, you're allowed to put it in a milk plate. Now later on, we're going to say Yisrael Kadeshim Haim. The Achreinim say that Yidden wanted to avoid problems. You try to do this in your house. You see what your wife has given you a mishbeirach. You're going to take it, the noodles will cook in a flesh kapat. You're going to put it in a milk plate. They're going to make all sorts of problems. The emphasis, it does make problems. So there are all sorts of chumras. Like we learned back, way back upon a time in Sim Peches, we learned from the Gemara and from the Shulchan Aruch, no problem putting a flesh kapat on a milk counter. Years before over there. But today we're machmer on this. And it's because it's very, very easy to get mixed up. Okay. But al pidin, there's no problem over here. It's not barnat, so we're going to be machmer l'chatchila, not to have it together with milk, but to put on milk like a plate. We're not going to go so far, says the Rama. Okay. There's going to be some discussion of this later on. We're going to contrast this with what he said in Sadik Dalit, with the Rama said in Sadik Dalit. We're going to have a few cases with the Rama over here in the Simon that we're going to have to look back and see what happened over there in the Simon Sadik Dalit and contrast. Okay, so that's heter number one. That you can, the Rama holds you can be makel to put it into the opposite case. Heter number two. Okay, if it was not through bishul or tzli, it was rak olu b'klishal basar. You put in a fleshka plate. Okay, so then there's no problem to have it with the cholav. I said many times these parentheses over there. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're right. It says as far as hatzmi. This is the medina de Gemara. Okay, so this is the Gemara says with kutach. So if the Ramah is not going to allow this, then what's the Gemara talking about? So that's the second heter. It's all that it just went. You took it out of the barbecue and you took it out of the pot and you put it straight into a plate. So then it's okay. The Gemara says it's okay. That's the second exception. Became third exception. If the flesh kapat that you cooked the fish in was not a ben yeme, it's a tampogum. So then you can have it. So this, we're going to have to wait really until Sif Gimel to understand all the ramifications of this case. But this is, I said that the last name of Nat Barnat is Lehateda. The emes Lehateda is maybe, if you want to call it, the middle name. Okay, because the last name would be Bein Ben Yem. Because if you have a Nat Barnat and Ein Ben Yeme Lehateda, yeah, so then that's really what the heter is. And therefore, when a person has a shaila, something gets mixed up in the kitchen. So the first question, ends up that was it hot? Okay, was it hot? Was it a klirishin? Was it a klishlishi? What was going on over here? Was it really cooked? Was it hot? And then you have to start finding out, was there a tampogum over here? When was the last time you cooked meat in this pot? When was the last time you used this spoon from milchik? And this is what, just from experience, you probably all have this experience. Somebody has a shaila in their kitchen, somebody took a fleshika spoon and they used it to stir up a hot chocolate. Okay, in a cup, in a pot. And they put on top of their fridge, out of Pesach, they clean, and they say, oh, you remember we had a shaila on a spoon. Let's call the Rav. So they call the Rav, and the Rav says, when was the last time it was used for milchik, this spoon? So they say, you say 6 months ago was the last time you used some. No, that's not what I mean. Let's say use a fleshka spoon and not chocolate. Before, how much time was there between the time you used the spoon for fleshik and the time you put it into the hot chocolate? So what does the person answer? I can tell you from experience. Very often, what do people answer? They say, how in the world am I supposed to remember? Well, 6 months ago. And that's why you should always ask the shaila right away, because sometimes it's going to make a big difference in something that's a ben yem or ain't a ben yem. We see it was not barnat, ain't a ben yem, so it changes the whole story. That's the Rama says, so therefore, let's go back to our macaroni. So the macaroni that was cooked in the flesh kapat, yeah, so we say lechatchila, you can't make mac and cheese out of it. The Rama said you can put it in the milk like a keli, but you cannot have it with cheese. But if the flesh kapat was ein ben yeme, what's the din? Mutter lachatchila, negen het lachatchila lachem men Hashem. So therefore, in yeshiva, when they bake the kugel, so it's not only not parnat, it was Eina ben Yemei. Couldn't afford cheese, milk, baking pans. How much cheese they have already? So sure Eina ben Yemei. By the time they cooked the kugel for Shabbos, so it was a not parnat, and it was Eina ben Yemei. Okay, well, I'm gonna get to a stopping point over here.
Is it lachatchila mutter to book
Okay,
it?
let me, these three hetarim over here, we're gonna discuss all of them right now separately. Okay, so hold on for 3 more slides and then we'll take some questions on a break. Okay, because we're going to first discuss the din of putting it in the keli. Okay, but this is the Ramah, you know, we're not finished yet. We're doing Shachantaz and this Marshal, it's all. Okay, so we have to know that these three hetarim. Okay, what okay, so let's get to work. So the first heter of the three was that you're allowed to put it in the keli. Okay, so we have over here eggs that were cooked in a milchika pot. Eggs were cooked in a milchika pot, so they're not parnat. They're not parnat. You have the taste of the milk went into the pot, and from the pot went into the eggs. So it's not parnat. Not parnat latera. The Ramah says, Machaber says, mutchatchila. You can have it with cheese, no problem. The Ramah says also lachatchila, mutabedim. But the Ramah says you can put it in milchika keli. So this over here is excuse me, it's put in a fleshika keli. It's cooked in a milchika pot. You can put it in a fleshika keli. See, it says on the left, kli basari. Looks blue to me, but anyway. It's a fleshka keli. The milchika eggs, they're not really milchika, they're not parnat eggs. They're not parnat eggs, not parnat eggs. The Ramah says you're allowed to put in a keli. That's what the Ramah says. The Ramah says, Michael Pavish is Pasha Bakli Basari. Okay, I don't know. So backwards over there. In any case, you're allowed to have it in the keli, which is opposite. The Marshal says, the Marshal is Machmer. The Marshal says that heter is also a b'diavad heter. The Ramah says you're allowed to put it in the opposite keli lechatchila. The Marshal says only b'diavad. And the Taz says, you know, you should do lechatchila like the Marshal. It's mashma, but the mekel kadas Ramah lehifs it. Okay.
Hot or cold?
Like the Ramah and do lechatchila. Lamaisa minig yisrael kadesh m'lahakol b'zerak beifan akroi b'albat. If you're stuck and you have no other choice, then you can put it in milchak keli. Okay, so if you cooked your what is it? Michael Pavsh's Bashal Bakli Bosor. Okay, so you cooked your macaroni in a fleshika pot. Okay, Ben Yamin now we're talking about. We're talking about the keli. Can you put it in a milchik? Can you eat it in a milchik bowl? So the Marshal says no. It's just B'diev is not going to answer it. The Taz says you should do like the Marshal, but make it like the Ramali Hifsid. But the minig is to do like the Marshal. Do like the Marshal. And that's not what people do. You take food that was cooked, you take soup that was cooked in a fleshka pot, you didn't milk a bowl. Nobody does that. I mean, by mistake people do it. But people don't do this on purpose. That's Takaminig Yisrael. Okay? And let's say to cook it in the fleshka pot, having in mind to eat it with milk and kelim, that also you can't do. You don't have any other kelim, you don't have anything. You're on the road, you're camping. Whatever the case is, and then we can talk b'shas adchak to eat it in another keli. I mean, we're talking about a parva food now. Talking about a parva food, not parnat. So it's not parnat latera nishta ze push. The Ramah says you're going to have it in the opposite keli. Okay, so the Marshal says no. The minig is to do like the Marshal. And if you know in advance that you don't have fleshika kelim to eat these noodles with, okay, are you allowed to do it lachatchila? So only b'shas adchak you're allowed to do that. Lachatchila you're not allowed to do it. Okay, so everything over here, like everything else in halacha, you get the halacha, not latera. Good, we're passing like Shmuel. I'm going to sleep. Then you're not going to sleep yet. Kindalach. There's plenty of details to learn. Then we said the Ramah has 3 exceptions. I said, okay, we're not finished with the 3 exceptions either. We gave an exception. The Ramah says you're allowed to eat in the opposite keli. Yeah, but yeah, but there's a mashal, but shasat chag, but Yisrael kadeshim. Okay, Minig Yisrael is not to do it. And everybody knows it's easy to get mixed up. Also, Laris, Michael. Harasech Yesheris Makli B'Sari Akel Chalavi. This is another whole discussion over there in the Nesa Kalim. So let's say I would have here's a milchak keli, milchak bowl. We have this expansive bowl, and I'm going to take the soup from the fleshka keli, pour it straight into the bowl. So that already is irreclidation. So there's a whole big discussion in the Nesa Kalim about the din of irreclidation. We're going to matter irreclidation, and we're going to say that's the same as bishul. In general, we say irreclidation, babashal kadei klifa. So now when we get to this dinim, so you're not allowed to cook it together, but what about putting in another keli? So what does it mean putting in another keli? You're going to pour it into another keli? That's bishul. There's a bishul kadei klifa. So that's again not so pashut. So therefore, the ma'isa we're machmer not to also la'aris the meichel arasech yisheis mekli b'sari kli achlavi. That's like cooking it together. Cooking it together, we already said you're not allowed to do. The Ramah says you can put in the keli. How did you put in the keli? You don't put in the keli through irreclidation. Okay, because that's going to have the same din as bishul. Okay, that was the first exception about it being able to put it in the keli. Then the Ramah says, Michael Pamsha, all of Bekli Basari, please bash it, but they can mutlachlim cholif. So this seemed very, very straightforward. I mean, he said over there, Das Atzmi. Now we'll soon see maybe what the Das Atzmi, what he meant by writing that. Because we say it's so partial. Yeah, that's what the Gemara was talking about. If not that, we don't have, you can't be more machmer than the Rivon. We don't have anything else. If you don't allow this, then what in the world is the Gemara talking about? You want to pass on like Rab? We pass on like Shmuel. So what in the world is mutter if not this? Okay? So that's why we learned that there are different cases of what is hot and what it's called. So Shach says like this. Ima kleira seich, v'meichel tseinen. The Gemara is talking about a case, let's say it outside. The Gemara is talking about a case as the Shach, that one of the two was cold. Either the fish was cold and the plate was hot, or the plate was cold and the fish was hot. But if the fish was hot and the plate was hot, so then that's not what the Gemara is talking about. That we're already going to put together in the case of Bishul. Because of a Shach. The keli was hot. And the fish was cold. The fish was hot and the keli was cold. Yeah, that's what the Gemara is talking about. That the Gemara is not talking about. So therefore, you cannot do. Okay, so that's another thing. So that is the footnote, so to speak, the but that goes on the second head of the Ramah. The Ramah says that if all the Bakaira was not cooked, so then that's okay. That's what the Gemara is talking about. But the Shach says that's if they were both cold. There's a whole long Shach, a whole discussion over there. If we say Tato Gavar, what's the difference? Normally, when we say Tato Gavar, it doesn't make too much of a difference. What's with the thing that's on top? We said if the top was hot and the bottom was cold, so then it's not going to absorb. Okay, because they flip it, but it doesn't go all the way through. Mashenkin, if the bottom was hot, then we say tatogavar, it's just like it was cooked. But again, it's like it was cooked. They're not mamish the same thing. So therefore, the Shach wants to say that if they were both hot, that's not the Indian dogim shola b'kaira. The dogim shola b'kaira, the pashtus, it's dogim shola was hot dogim with a cold kaira. The way the Rivon would learn. Okay, but if they both were hot, then it's going to be awesome. Now, if the dogma were cold and the kaira was hot, so the Shach is also making. Then you can say it's talking about that too. But to go so far, if they were both hot, then that already has the din of bishul. Now, can you put the Michael Pavra Seach, V'kli Basari, Almanas La'achla Achakachim Cholov? Can you do this? So that's already l'chatchila. You can't do this l'chatchila. This is the din of b'diavad. Weiter, it's a din of b'diavad. So we say the clear Seach and the Michael Tzeinain. Yeah, that you mutalachal Michael Cholov. That's what happened already, but you cannot do that l'chatchila in order to eat it later with cholov. We already said that's a different l'chatchila. Okay, we'll finish the third one. I'll take some questions, and then we have the din of ben yamin, ain't ben yamin. The Ramah said back over here. We'll go back to the Ramah. All the way back here. there was Eina ben Yemei, it's also okay. So that was the third head of the Ram. So now here we also have a mashal. Ramah says, Michael Pavshis Pasha Bakli Besar Eina ben Yemei. So let's say the fleshika pat that you cooked the macaroni in was Eina ben Yemei. Yeah, and it was already cooked. So since it's Eina ben Yemei, mutlach lim cholav, make your macaroni and cheese. Just like we had in yeshiva. Says the Ramah that if it was Eina ben Yemei, over there was a milcha kekele tita with Bosor, the same thing backwards. So therefore, it was not only not barnat, but in addition to being not barnat, Eina ben Yemei, so then the Ramah said mutter. Okay, Marshal says yes. B'diavad, not lechatchila. Parish is bashal b'kli b'sorish Eina ben Yemei lechatchila ein lo. You're not allowed to do lechatchila. He agrees that b'diavad it's okay. But lechatchila, why is that? The Marshal says, "B'chlal we're gezer, Eina ben Yemei, Ota ben Yemei. B'chlal, why do you have to kasha kelim? They're not a ben Yemei. What's the problem? We say Neisen Tam Levgam is mutter. We pass it. It's Eina ben Yemei. We learned that back inside the Gimel. So what's the problem? The problem is, like we learned over there from the Gemara, that midirabanan it's also. So midarais is taka mutter, midirabanan it's also. So what does that mean? Says the Marshal. The Marshal says that midirabanan which should Eina ben Yemei like a ben Yemei. The same thing over here. Lechatchila, no, and b'diavad, yeah. Just like if it was a ben Yemei, you'd say lechatchila, not b'diavad, yeah. I mean, the Marshal wants to be machmer b'tzli, but if it's Eina ben Yemei, which should Eina ben Yemei like a ben Yemei, it's very logical. Marshal. Shaila is ha'ad mosai. How far do you have to be machmer? So the Marshal says we're machmer as far as this also with Eina ben Yemei. So the Taz is not so convinced, but Minik Yisrael is convinced. Because of Taz, a mekel kadas Ramal lehipsid. If you want to be making like the Ramah in the case of not, but Eina ben Yemei, but that's mitzvah din. If you're stuck and you have nothing else to use, akrai ba'alma is all yeshiva was akrai ba'alma. So that's the way it was. Okay, so this is a very practical case. So now let's say a case you wanna bake bread. You have a fleish cob. That's a little in practical cases. You want to make a cake. And you want to be able to eat it Shabbos morning with a coffee with milk. You want to make a parva cake. You want to bake bread, and you want to bake a loaf of bread, and you got a new bread maker. You want to bake bread, and she wants to know, we have a fleish oven. What's with the? I want to have cheese. I want to make a cheese sandwich with this bread, with my delicious homemade bread. Are you allowed to do that without kashering the oven? The shayla is how the kash of milk is the fleish. It's not like mamish kashering the oven. You don't have to worry. It's a teta bola. If we ever get that out, that you only need a libn kal, you don't need a libn chamer. We discussed it. The hemshech to shvuas, that to get out the tambasir is easy with a gola or a libn kal. You just have to like preheat it, and then it's already kasher. The problem is our ovens are difficult to clean if you don't have a self cleaning. But in any case, let's just say mitzad the din of not barnat. Let's say you have a sponge cake. You have a sponge cake, so there's a zaya coming out of the sponge cake, and you have the roof of the. Then you might have to worry even about mamoshes. But in any case, we have to worry about the fleish oven. We have to worry about not barnat. So in such a case, you're allowed to have it. So let's say you left your oven for 24 hours. Can you do that in order to eat it with challah? So we say, you're not allowed to do that. So if you only have one oven, so this is already we discussed this when we were talking about the shteikaderis and the airline meals. So then you can't bring your own oven with you on the plane. So there's only one oven on the plane. So that's already called the matzav b'diavad. So therefore, even according to the deis, it's b'chal machlekes where shteikaderis is a hetel chatchil or only b'diavad. But even the ones that hold it's only b'diavad, so they would allow in such a case because you don't really have a Berel. So I think take some questions from the chat here. Just give me 1 second. Stop the share over here. We'll Okay, we're gonna leave the countertop. That's the dinner steak potatoes. We'll cover that in the review. So if you want to jot down your question about the counter when we do the review about steak potatoes, can you explain what the Ramah means about lechatchila? So that's what we just had over there. The Ramah lechatchila. Everybody agrees lechatchila. You're not allowed. Even the Machaber holds you're not allowed to put it into the pot almanas to eat it with the. You're not allowed to cook the fish in the flesh kapat in order to eat it with milchix, to eat it with kutach, that you're not allowed to do. If it was already cooked, okay, so now the Machaber says, l'chatchila, you can take that fish and eat it with kutach, and the Ramah says, no, l'chatchila, you can't. Okay, but it was already mixed with the kutach, then it's okay. Oh, so you already answered in the chat, so yeah, I should read further. Dirty but burnt great on the grill considered pagam mamashis. Okay, we will in Mitzvah Hashem discuss that. The din of Efer, we're going to have later on in Tzadikah. That's going to be next week. I'm going to have more details of what's called Tam Pagam. The problem is only if the food is hot. Correct? Yes, correct. Okay, any other questions?
When it says you can't use it in a milcha keli or fleisha keli, is that hot and cold or just hot?
When you can't use
it in another keli. The first case, the first kol of the Ramah, where the Marshal's machmer.
the dinim of using something in the other in the opposite. The Ramah means even hot. Because
Right.
when it's cold,
What does the Marshal mean?
we learned earlier in the in Tzadik Aleph that even on a treifa keli, you Bosor mamish, not only a not for not, you're allowed to use.
Right, but when the Marshal answers it, is it also for
You
cold?
ask if the Marshal, will the Marshal answer if it's cold? I don't think he would go so far. Even Bosor mamish, I don't know. I have to double check. I don't think so. Any other questions before we take a break? I think it's time for a break, yeah? We did an hour and 15 minutes. We'll take a break, yeah? Okay, we did good. Is this clear? Is this clear? Is everybody flying? Because we went through a lot. We went through the material fast, but that was because I think that you get the Yeseides, then it's easier to get the picture clear. And then the Shulchan Aruch goes more geschmiert, I think. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break now. It's 8:20. We'll continue at Mitzvah Hashem, 8:30. Okay, recording in progress. So let us proceed. Okay, so this is the last piece we learned over here about the third exception of the Ramah, to be lenient, nar panat, when it's an Eina ben Yemei. And the min again is to be machmer l'chatchila, like the Marshal, unless we have other reasons to be mekel. So now we have some other inyanim, and we mentioned this briefly before, but now let's continue with the Ramah in Siv Beis. Mentioned you that the long Ramah over here. Here you have in the background some pictures of onions with a knife. And as we mentioned a few times, we mentioned here also that the davar charif has a unique status. And as I mentioned in the introduction, sometimes something might look like not barnat, and it's not really. So when you have a tam basar, let's say that knife that's lying on its side in the right-hand side over there is a fleishika knife. It was used to cut meat, hot meat, and to take the dover gush angle of it out of the picture. Let's say it was in a klirishon, so it would absorb tam basar. So then you're going to cut onions with it. So you're going to say, okay, dover charif, took the skina. So it's like it was cooked. That's what we learned before. It's like it was cooked when we discussed before dover charif. The Ramah is going to tell over here it's worse than if it's cooked, because namshich not only tam, it's not even not bernard anymore. Okay, and that's the Ramah continues over here in Siv Beis. So called the kashamaychol enu dover charif. When do we say this din of not bernard that the taste went into the keli, from the keli into the food when it's not a dover charif? So either with through bishul or with duchka, Let's say you cooked sharp things in a keli shabasar. And furthermore, even as Eina Benyame. And this is really, if you want to talk about things happening in a kitchen, I mentioned this, I think, before, serious, there are buzz of shilas happening constantly in a kitchen. Somebody's going to mix up the hot chocolate with a fleshika spoon. Okay, so what happened over here already? It was a klisheni. It was still hot. It was a banyeme. What exactly happened over here? It's very difficult to treif something up. Mamish is okay. You're gonna be machmer klisheni lechatchila, but to really make a big problem, you're gonna use it in the klidishin, and it was a banyeme. It was not a banyeme. What exactly happened over here? But you want to mess up a kitchen, so the easiest way to do it is with a dover charif, because even if something's ain't a banyeme, then it's going to acid. And who cooks dvarim charifim? So that soup that we were talking about, the parva soup that was cooked in the fleshka pot, right? And we said not barnat, so it's not so posh, it's not barnat. Why? Because often when people make a meichel, whether it was a soup or something else, often the first thing they do is they fry. What do they fry? They fry onions, and they fry onions in the fleshka pot. So then the whole din of Eina Benyeme goes out the window. Because the tam bosor went into the pot, and now the tam from the pot goes into the onions, and you want to say not barnat. Yeah, but it's a dover charif. We don't know what of not barnat. Then you want to say, but the Ramah said it's okay if it's Eina Benyeme. Dover charif, no Eina Benyeme anymore. Eina Benyeme is a tam pogum. You want to make food that doesn't taste so good. To make it taste good, fry some onions. So the dover charif takes away the tampogum. So that's why if even it's Eina Benyame, it's still awesome. So that's if it's cooked. So what ends up happening, we're going to talk about this more in Tzadik Vav. There's not really the place for it here, but the Ramah says it, so we're learning it now, but it's going to be discussed in Tzadik Vav. You know, what exactly the status? It ends up really, when you get down to it, those pieces of onions are like little pieces of Bosor now. Okay, but again, Tzadik Vav. So first case is that you cook the dover charif. They used to grind their own tavlin. So let's say you had garlic, and you're grinding the garlic, and then they used a fleshika. They would pound it a mortar and pestle, let's say. So that also has the din of duchka, because it's not a knife, but it's still pounding it, and there's pressure. So therefore, it's on a fleshika. So therefore, since it's over charif, we don't have the din of not barnat. So im nosna b'chalav, if you take these tavlin, or you take those onions, whatever it was, the dover charif that you cooked, and you put it into milk. We don't say chtichanas and avela with a heter. So you don't have to measure against the whole onion. Practically speaking, you're gonna have to measure against the whole onion because you don't know how much basar. This we had earlier, that if it was a brand new keli lamashal and you know how much basar was used in it, so then you don't have to measure against the entire keli. You can only measure against how much basar was used in it. But once the keli is a used keli, it's not a brand new keli. Okay, you can do the same thing. If you know how much was used in the last 24 hours, you can measure against the Eina Benyame. But that works over there. It doesn't work over here because here it's going to ask Eina Benyame. The only time it's going to possibly work to be the ikashishim neged basar abulua. How are you going to know how much is the basar abulua by him? So, you know, if it's a knife, again, we had a whole discussion. They have to measure against the whole knife. We assumed that the whole knife was used. The blade of the knife was used. In any case, and it's not nas and avela. It's not a iser. If you would use a sakin shal iser, it was a treifa knife and you cut an onion with this, and that'd be a different story because it might be nice. We'll have a whole discussion of chetich nas avela b'shari surim. Okay, over here it's busted. There's nothing chetich nas and avela. Either you have to measure against the whole keli, whether it was a knife or a modach, whatever it was. If you know, then you can measure against basar blue behem. But anyway, since it's a dover charif, we don't have this din of not barnat. But just because it has a little bit of a dover, you put a little bit of onions in something, mishum mat tavlin shabay, you put a little bit of garlic into something, it becomes a dover charif. Rakim kula a dover charif. You have the whole thing a dover charif. V'ruba kekul ayin sim and tzadik vav. Very, very important applicable din, but the place for it is tzadik vav. So what is considered dover charif? What's with lemons and what's with oranges and what's with this type of radish and that type of vegetable and this type of liquid and so on and so forth. That we will discuss Be'ezus Hashem and Simon Tzadik Vav, very big subject, but very, very applicable. But what we learn over here is, as I explained before, that why is it you need Shishim to be Mavatal the Bosor? Because it's the Tam Mamish. The Dover Charif draws out the Tam in a way that it's not only not Parnat. So if we don't have the Heter, not Parnat. Because otherwise this would be like the Dog Mishne Spashal Bakaira that we learned at the beginning of Sif Aleph in the Machaber. Okay, and even then they're the most machmir lechatchila like the Ribon, but b'diavad is matir. So over here there's no b'diavad mutter. It's going to aser ad shishim. Why is that? Because davar charif, it doesn't work. The whole concept of not parnat. Question. Okay, I just want to differentiate between two things over here. Okay, you have to measure against the balua. You really have to differentiate. When we say there's two dinim, he says here. One din is he says there's no not parnat. Okay, the din that there's no not parnat, we learned from the Gemara. That was the part that was not highlighted in the when we had those two pieces from the Gemara, the two shuras from the Gemara. So I said we learn it anyway. We're going to need it later. So this is the later that I was referring to, because it says in the Gemara that even though dogm shola b'kaira, we passing like Shmuel that it's not parnat and therefore it's okay. But snaim shachotchu b'sakin. If you cut the radish, then we say with it's also. So why is that? Because it's not called not parnat. Because tam charif is mamshich is meshach the ikar tam. Okay, so that's a din from the Gemara. The din of that applies even for Eina ben Yemei, Azay alter Amah, and that baker we pass in Lamaisa, but we're going to see later in Simon Tzadik Vav that this is a machlekes. There's a big machlekes whether it applies to Eina ben Yemei, and we're going to discuss it over there. So it's not the same. To say the Dover Charif doesn't have din of not parnat, the din of the Gemara, nobody argues with that. But to say that there's also Eina ben Yemei is a matter of discussion later on. We'll get to in Tzadik. So Dover Chavish in the Bashal and Nechter, Mikhail Bosor, and Lo Achlim Mechalav, Afila B'diavad, and Misar Ibn Mechalav, Hakolasik. So you're going to cut those onions with a fleshika knife, and then you're going to put it together with chalav. You have a major problem. Because not b'dover charif kikaratam. It's makeli. It's the ikaratam. It's like the taste of them cholent going through the eggshell. That's the power of a dover charif, and that's midin of the Gemara. But the other din, Eina ben Yemei, Afila Plibas, Eina ben Yemei. Nasha b'Michael Parvik, sorry. Sorry, also lachli. Because there's no the tampogim, mechribas mashpichas atam. And as I said, this is a machlekes. We pass in our paskins clearly like this, but it's not the same chaymer adin as we have lagab, but not parnat. Okay, but this will come back lamaisa in Simon Tzadik Vav, Be'ezus Hashem 2 weeks from now. Okay, here he has some nice pictures over here. And if it's only a little bit, so yeah, you have a salad with some onions in it. I don't know who in the world is going to cook the salad that's going to make a problem. But let's say there's cheese in the salad. So you call the whole thing like there's shtikla chabasar. Anyway, if you would take this whole thing and cook it, you'd have cooked salad. I don't think anybody would want to eat it. But anyway, we're not going to say that the entire thing is a dover charif, that we're going to answer it if it was cooked in a kli basari. For example, that we're gonna, let's say this whole thing is parv. Let's say the whole thing is parv, and the onions were also cut with a parv knife. And then you took this whole thing, you put it in a pot and cooked it. It has some onions, it's called davar charif. So Rama says no. You have a little bit, it's not this. Kula davar charif. So it doesn't. So have a whole discussion. Sadik Vav is a ruba kikula. What exactly is going to apply? And we have these different sorts of sharp dips, things like that. How sharp is sharp? The discussion for Simon Tzadik. Okay, next case. Very interesting. Not barnat b'maychol. Do we say not barnat if it went into a parva food, or we say only by a parva kei? Very interesting question. So there is a Pischat Tshuva Aleph, I think it is. Yeah, Pischat Tshuva Aleph talks about this, and a whole big machlekes too. We say not barnat in eichel or not. So Tama Eber and Michael ain't an achshav not parnat. Vikar then we hold there's no not parnat. The filo Tama Eber and Michael a kli ain't an achshav not parnat. We went from a Michael to a keli. We're talking about a keli to keli. Let's think about our case of dogim shola b'kaira. What happens The first time was into a keli. Let's say the first time was not into a keli. Let's say the first time was into a meichel. Like the case on the right. Here we have a potato, and you see there's bosor in this pot. So there's a flesh of a meichel, and now you cooked some. I hope they checked these herbs for teiloim. Anyway, the teiloim are nice and tam lefgamanat that we learned in Hilchos Tairus. Anyway, so we have a flesh pot. And now we have a parva potato. What used to be a parva potato, now it's a fleshka potato. Why is a fleshka potato? Because the bosor was nice and tam into the potato. Okay, now we take this potato and we put it together with the potatoes on the left-hand side, which are parva potatoes. There it goes flying over there. Somebody had a lot of fun with this parva. Okay, so now we got one flavor. They all look the same, these potatoes, but only one of them, if it was nicker, then we would take it out, but it's not nicker, and one of them is flesh. So tepuch adama basir she's bashlim, tepuch adama shabola bosor nasim besorim. So we don't say not par not. What's going to happen if you cook these potatoes together? You're going to want to say not par not. This one potato is less than shisha. So we say that the tam bosor went into the potato was the first nice and tam, and now the tam went from this one fleshka potato into the other parva potatoes. The second nice and tam. Not panat latera. Okay, so it's not panat latera. Who says not panat? This goes applies to an eichel. Over there, dogim shola b'kaira, or the egg that was cooked in the milk kapat. The first time was into a keli. Okay, here the first time is into a meichel. This is not panat. This is called cooking. This is the way we cook. You put foods together and you cook them, so it absorbs time. It's one of the yonim of cooking. Now this becomes extremely complicated. You look at the Piskei Tshuva, and we'll soon see in the Alter Rebbe. I quoted a little piece of Alter Rebbe, and I'm not going to be ma'arich in it because really we have to finish the topic of not par not. By the end of next week, we'll be able to understand better what's going on over here. I just took a little piece just to give you a little hint what's going on in Alter Rebbe, and it's a very, very important thing. You want to know halacha l'maisa, what we hold, so this Alter Rebbe is crucial. But in any case, the Prima Godim makes a chakira out of this. The Piskei Tshuva brings down the Prima Godim also. The Prima Godim, b'chlal, at the beginning of every simon, usually in the first taz, because he did the taz before the shach, evidently the Prima Godim. It's a Mishpat Zov and Sif Sedas, he calls this Pirushim on the shach and taz. So usually what happens is the beginning of the simon, beginning of the whole Bosor B'chalav, he has a psicha klalis. B'chal, he has a psicha klalis to the whole the Orachaim. B'chal, these psichas are like classic works of halacha. There's whole pirushim on these psichas. It's a whole like a sefer in and of itself, each one of these psichas. But he has psicha Bosor B'chalav too. And then at the beginning of Simon, he's like, it's not like a whole psicha, but like for the Yanyanim of the Simon, it's usually in the first taz in the Simon. So over here, one of the chakiras, he said, you can be chaker the dinim of not par not. One of the things he's asking, what's with the not par not with a eichel? And then he says, what if it's first a eichel and then a keli? Let's say it's first a kli and then an eichel. Let's say it's first a eichel, then a kli and then an eichel. And all different combinations, you can understand how this can become a whole discussion, especially when you don't have a clear achra, you don't have something clear from the Gemara in order to guide us what exactly is the din. So this becomes a pretty complicated subject. Now, just to give you, I'll give you something that people quote in the Sfarim as an example of this, but I think it's not an example of it, but I'll bring it down. There are other things which are similar. People bring down the din. What happens? You're in a fleshka restaurant, okay, and you get French fries. Okay, so the French fries are parv, but the restaurant is fleshka. So the French fries are fried. That's what I call French fries. So they're fried in what? They're deep fried in oil. What's with the oil there? So maybe they made schnitzel and maybe they fried chicken in the oil. So this is quoted by some of the contemporary Sfarim as this shaila of not par not ba'eichem. Why? Because you fried the chicken in the oil, so the tam of chicken went into the oil, and then now you took out the chicken. Okay, now you took the potato and you fried it in the same oil. So now the tam went from the meat into the oil, and now it's going from the oil into the potato. So I don't want to make this a shaila of not par not latera. Okay, but the emes is, and then the not potato, but ba'eichem. So The emes is it's not like that. It's not a good comparison. Why is that? Because it's not just tam that's in the oil. There's melted fat that comes off of the chicken that dissolves into the oil, and the din of that chicken fat and other sorts of fats which are floating around over there. This is not just tam. This is mamoshes. It's like you're going to eat a piece of the meat and say, "Oh, it tastes like bosor." No, nice and tam. It's not nice and tam. It's bosor mamish. And so too, that oil is not just tam bosor. The derech klal in your average restaurant, it's bosor mamish. And the same thing in the milchiks, they're frying the different cheese things. They're deep frying sometimes cheese in the oil, different sorts of mecholim, depending on the restaurant. So it's lav dafki even a shaila. So when it comes to French fries, it's not a shaila whether you're allowed to dip them in sour cream. It's not or not. Or if it got mixed up with you're able to eat it, but the shaila is whether you have to wait 6 hours afterwards. Because since it has tam basar, and this is a tam basar, it's mamash the basar got absorbed into these French fries. So in general, in Nevada, we say that people have to wait after such a thing. We try and in general, the policy is to make them have 2 separate fryers. Yeah, this is the job of the mashgiach to make sure that they keep that even. They have the big back order of people waiting for their French fries, and the guy that owns the restaurant is afraid they're going to walk out the door, and he's got one fryer that's just sitting there because nobody's ordering fried chicken, and it's just sitting there. Shame. Okay, or falafel balls, any things like this that are deep fried in a place that is fleishik, so then you have to be concerned about the falafel balls. And it's not just the shaila of not barnat. There are many other cases where it is a shaila of not barnat. Anything be'emes in a fleishik restaurant is a shaila of not barnat. You're going to buy potato salad in a fleishik caterer. You're going to go to kosher quality and buy potato salad. So those potatoes are cooked in fleishik kelim. It's not barnat. Yeah, there's no problem with it. You're allowed to eat it. The shaila is, can you eat it with milchiks? People want to buy latkes in a fleishka caterer, and they're going to serve it together with sour cream. Yeah, you have to assume that those are fleishik, unless you're told otherwise. That since they know people eat them with sour cream, so there's the gzeira. We're going to learn in Tzadik Zayin that there's a gzeira. You're not allowed to make bread that's fleishik or bread that's milchik, because people eat bread with everything. But just because people eat latkes with everything doesn't mean that the chachamim made a gzeira on latkes. I never saw a plate that made a gzeira on latkes. But practically speaking, it could be an issue. You have to ask whether things were made in fleishik kelim, not made in fleishik kelim, if you want to use it with the other min. Or you want to take something from something par from a fleishik restaurant, you want to put it in the opposite keli. You want to serve it on fleishik dishes or heat it up in a fleishik pot. Okay, we can't give the psak din on this until after next week's shir. After the end of next week's shir, we'll give a sikum on all the practical dinim, because there are a lot of pratim, and it's very, very negeya halacha l'maisa. Okay, so here, this is out there of Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Pesach. Simon Tofnun Beis is a kasher and kelim. Sif Yud Gimel is a Haggah. So I brought down this Haggah. You should get an idea. And the fact is, halacha l'maisa, you should know where this is. And I'll try to weave this somehow into our Chazara somewhere. The Alter Rebbe is talking about what happens if you kasher. Yeah, we'll take this off the screen a second, too distracting. That you're kashering kelim for Pesach, and it's after Shachamishis. So it's already a time when chametz is asur. So what's going to happen? So let's say you have a chametz keli, a chametz pat, and you're kashering. You want to kasher a spoon for Pesach in the chametz pat, or vice versa. Okay, so let's say you have the pat. So what's going to be? So the pat was b'leya tam chametz. That's tam number one, and then the chametz from the kedera from the pot goes into the water. It's tam number two, and then it's going to go from there into the spoon. Okay, so is it you need it before shachamishis? It's already after shachamishis. It's already isser. Not also b'mashahu, but it's still isser. On the other hand, we say, can we use it, especially if it's before shachamishis? When we say not banat lateiram, When you say not latera, that's what he's talking about over there. So he brings down over there that you should look really in Simon Top Mem Zion, and Top Mem Zion, Sif Mem Hey, is the main place where he discusses, gives the klolium not for not, and he contrasts over there chametz and basar b'cholav because they don't have exactly the same din. But parenthetically over here in discussing chametz, he refers to the dinim that we're learning. Bayan Sham, look over there in Simon Tov Mem Zayin, Sif Mem Hey. Sha'af ha'isrim bebeis neis netam, even the opinions that aser to neis netam, not for not, made them begimel neis netam. Mitam ha'mavorsham. So who is this that allows gimel neis netam and they don't allow two neis netam? Who is this? You should know.
Tosfos?
Tosfos, exactly. It's a jackpot. Very good. Now, I mentioned to you that we have a whole problem that's still trailing after us, that hopefully we'll get to begin the discussion of it today. If not, we'll discuss the whole thing next week. But we have this Sadik Dalet Sifhei, which seem to be some steers over here. So you see, the Samach Zayin brings down over here, look at the Shachar Yerodei, Sadik Dalet Tezvav B'Shem Kama Poskim about this day. But look over here. Okay, we'll read further inside. Sound familiar? Sound okay. This is not similar. Their case over there, the Alter Rebbe talking about chametz, is not like our case. When you cooked the fish in a Kedera Shel Bosor. Sheyesh Eisrim Lo'achlan B'Cholav. That those that say you're not allowed to eat a B'Cholav. Yeah, who's that?
Rivan.
Rivan, yeah. That's the Ramah. Aber Bisheyesh Gimel Neis Time in a Bosor Kedera Kedera La Reitiv Shel Dogim Shabbos Reitiv Le Dogim. You got 3 timing. Yeah, from the meat into the pot, from the pot into the liquid surrounding the dog. He calls it reitiv shel dogim because you cooked already the fish inside, so that's already fish soup. Yeah, and then from that reitiv it goes into the dogim. You have 3 times. Okay, look at Samaches. Yeah. Sefer Trum. Shemitam ze eisrim not bar not betzliya matirim bevishul. The Alter Rebbe explains beferish. That's the difference. I'll give you a hint. Where did I get this Alderasha from? I got it from here. Got it from this Haggadah. This Haggadah, I have to tell you, normally you get a shailin, and not per not. So this is the address to know what the Alter Rebbe shita. I mean, it's more in them talking Zion, but this is the Alter Rebbe brings it down. The Ramah, Tzadik Hey, Siv Beis. Hey, sounds familiar. L'chatchila, we ask her not only 2 knots like Taisus, we ask it even with Bishul, where there's 3 nice times, like the Rivon. Ramah says Lachatchila. Now, what's the difference? Yeah. Why is it that over there by Hagolas Kalim, the Alter Rebbe is more makel with 3, and over here we're machmer with 3? Why? Because it's Eichel. The difference between a Beli and a Keli and a Beli and Eichel. And that's the whole discussion that we just had. And the whole discussion, the Piskei Tshuva over here, and the whole Chakira of the Prima Godim. And here the Alter Rebbe gives you a clear explanation. Like we said from the Ran, that the whole idea of not for not is because as it goes along the way, it becomes more weak. So in a food, it also becomes weak. Yeah. So over there, what happens? The tam Bosor, what happened to this Bosor? It went through a couple of gilgul in this Bosor before it reached this dogim. What happened? First, it went into the pot, tam number 1. Then it went into the liquid, tam number 2. And then it went to the dogim. It's 3 knots in the dogim. How much is left over here? So just remember, even those that are matter gimel neis and tam, it's not because there's nothing there. It's not because there's nothing there. The Gemara says it doesn't have such a chshivas anymore when it's become so weakened. But if it was not li surah, let's say it was chazer, so for sure a gimel nats is us. There's no not by yes. Okay, so now it's in a food. So there's some tam basar over there. It's very, very weak because every time it goes through another dissolving, whatever the proper word is, it becomes more nespashit, becomes more kolush. It's the wording of the Ran. But if it's in food, Nivla eichel be'eichel. Because it's different. The time of eichel that gets nivla in a keli is different from the time eichel that gets nivla in a eichel. So dogm ruin lachila v'bas and osen tam v'hem tam l'shvach. Because since the dogm you can eat, so the time even is a little time. So what happens when a chef puts in different spices and different recipes, and you're making a meichel, and look at the thing we had before, that stew over there with the potatoes inside. Look how many ingredients over there. You can't taste all of these ingredients. LMI, every little bit gives a little bit. Okay, that's my mushes. This is them. But that's the reason that when Machmer over there, the Dasa Isrim, the Ramo, Asu Lachatchila, but Tam Kol Shul Chamish, Niblam in a Kalim, I mean a Yera, but Kalim, Niblam, but Kalim, ain't a Choshev Tam Klau, Kishachal Libam Pesach Techatavshul. What's going to happen? It went through one keli, then it went into another keli. Then you're going to use on a Pesach, it's 3 knots, going to go into the food already. The 2 kelim already took it out of commission. Anyway, this is it's a Maimer Amuzga. They don't ask you this, and you're not going to be asked unless I ask you on the fair. It's not in the Chayveres, but it's halacha lamaisa and has the direct bearing on what we just did. Okay, let me get back.
So
If you have
what is the
questions,
function?
and I know I'm running, but if you have questions, please write them down. We'll take them at the end. If there's any question, now I'll take them.
What is the message here with the Alter Rebbe's psak?
That we're more machmer on eichel ve'eichel. Okay, exactly when we're machmer eichel eichel, and all of the cases you have to learn the Prima Godman, the Pesach Tshuva, and the Achreinim, and then you can take the Alter Rebbe's hezbollah and apply it. But there's too many cases for us to go over, because there's many variations of these cases about how many kelim and how many eichlim and what say that you have to go through all of them in order to fully understand. So I can't go
So it's
through.
more chamer than what the Rama says, or
He's explaining, the Alter Rebbe is explaining the Ramah, the Alter Rebbe is explaining the Rivan, basically. Alter Rebbe is explaining the Rivan, why, and the Alter Rebbe is coming over here is to explain if we're machmer on 3 knots, l'chatchila, yeah, because we're asking bishul, right? We're going the Rivan, asks bishul, not only asks tzli, asks bishul too. Asks tzli, there's 2 knots, yeah, even asks bishul with 3 knots. Now the Rebbe Nilchot by Hagolus Kalim is being matter 3 knots. So I'll explain why is he being matter by Hagolus Kalim? Even is he being chelek on the Ramah who says l'chatchila we should do like the Rivan? Is he disagreeing with the Ramah? She says no, I'm not disagreeing with the Ramah. 2 different cases. I'm talking about Hagolus Kalim is Keli b'Keli. The time went from one Keli to another Keli, and over there the Ramah is talking about Eichel Eichel. Because the time Bosor is in the document as Chshivas Tzaz, Masha'en Ken, the time which went from a Keli to a Keli. Tam Chametz went from one Keli, you're worried about going to the other Keli.
but B'diavad he holds.
The Alter Rebbe is not adding, he's adding Hezbollah, he's not being Machadish really a din to what the Ramah says, but for the cases that the Ramah doesn't say, like the din of Eichel Latech Eichel, which is discussed, like I said, in the Prima Godin Pesach Tshuva, then in some cases you can learn out from the Mashmois at Alter Rebbe. Well, we can't go through all of them because it's Tirab Meim. Yafshir Lefort. It's Afshir, but we don't have time. Especially it's not directly on target. Okay, so let's go next case. So that was a Pesach Tshuva. Now we're going to give you a Chavas Das. So the Chavas Das comes with another Chumrah that's not directly discussed. Just you don't stare at the food and try to figure out what the shaila is, make it a little easier. I don't know if it's easier to concentrate on people. We got psychedelic pictures over here. If you have other things to stare at. Okay. Oh, good to see faces. Fine. You'll remember Tipus Cholav that fell onto the pot from the outside. I'm sure you'll remember that. But you dream about it sometimes. I hope you dream about it, yeah. Or we had a Tipus Cholav that fell on top of the Kedera. What happened to not for not? Why don't we say not for not? What happened over here? You have a Fleischke Michael cooking in a kitchen. Comes a Tipus Cholav, it falls in the pot. Okay? So what happened? So the Cholav, the milk is nice and tam into the pot. Okay? Then the pot is giving tam to the Bosor. Okay, so we say that's not called not banat. First of all, it's not banat lisura because it's going straight into the bosor. But even if not, we treat it, if you remember, we were vatal b'shishim because if it was b'shas bishul and it fell connected on Michael, as if it fell inside. As if it fell inside. Okay. So it's not pshat that it's not banat lisura, and that's the problem. We're being mashayir over here that as if it fell straight inside. And the Chavas Das explains that b'shas bishul is a whole different story. Okay, this not banat. First one thing happened, then another thing happened. But it's happening b'shas bishul. Tam shenibla b'kele b'shas habishul. Miyad niflat l'maychel. So here we have, let's say there's a parvakeli. You have a bunch of vegetables cooking in a parvakeli. Something's going to come flying out of somewhere, I know. Yeah, okay. The schnitzel came flying out. It was the old flying schnitzel chick. And we have some schnitzel that's now being heated up on top of this, on top of this pot. So what's pshat? What's pshat about what's happening over here inside this keli? Do we call this not banat? Because the schnitzel is giving tam into the kedera, and the kedera is giving tam into the vegetables. Or if you want to, if you had a little lower down, would be giving tam into the water, and the water into the vegetables. Okay, but we're not really differentiating between those two cases over here. Anyway, do we call it not banat? So along comes the Chavas Das, and he says this is not really a case of not banat. It is different than not banat. Because since the b'shas bishul, we have to entertain the possibility that it's like it fell straight in, and it's not a regular case of not banat. So there's a machlekes. Yeshem shedina not banat. Why katam over derech hakeli? There's a keli in between, so we can treat it like not banat. V'yeshem mishnei not banat. B'shas bishul abliya shebekli mechubaras l'maytlo shebekli. That it all gets mixed up together, so it's mamish. It's worse than not banat. So just like we said by the davar, the different exceptions we had to the rule, just like we said by davar charif, even though it looks like a not banat because it's going through a keli, but the davar charif draws out the tam atzmei. Yeah, and so too we said by an eichel that doesn't work by a keli, by an eichel only works by a keli. That's like the time of the thing itself. So too, it's b'shas bishul. There's an opinion that says that also there's no not banat in such a case. Okay, it's machlekes. I think it's the base mayor is mekel and prima godem machmer, and Allah lechatchila we should be machmer. And this is very very negated the gedin because when you're heating things up, so let's say I don't know, you're gonna take a then it's usually it's fleshig anyway. But let's say you take a challah and you're gonna heat it up on top of a pot of chont. You're gonna put it on top of a crock pot to heat up. Okay, it's b'shas bishul, and all of the steam and everything, the kisui kededa, like we learned before, that it's also like it fell connected amaychum. Yeah. So if that's the case, even this then we said shtei kededa shnogel zubazu with two kelim. We say the tam does not go from a kelim to another kelim b'lidrated. Okay, but if it's food against a kelim, we don't say that. I mean, you take a matzah and you bake a matzah on the floor of a chametz stick oven, and it's chametz. Yeah, we don't say if it's dry that there's no time. We say that only by kalim. If it's food, we call that roasting. You take a dry food and you roast it on a spit, on a shput. So then it's a baileya mamish with al yedei ha'esh. You have to leave a gummer on it. Okay, so two over here, you're going to take your challah and you say, okay, the top of the pot is clean and it's dry and I'm just heating it up and fine, good. Not dry, you have a problem bishul b'Shabbos, but that's okay. So it was dry. So then you decide, oh, somebody else, there's a leftover challah, this and that. You know what? We'll eat it during the week with cheese. You got a problem now, because you want to say not banat latera. Even then, maybe it's even less than not banat. But then you could say b'diavad mutter that are already mixed together. Then you have a different days, and we still say lechatchila you shouldn't make a cheese sandwich out of it. But over here we might even have a problem with b'diavad because not banat. So if it's not banat, so the Ramah says you should be machmel lechatchila, and obviously you don't do this having in mind that you're going to take the challah and make a cheese sandwich out of it. But if it would be not banat, then afterwards you say, okay, now I want to have with cheese. The Rambam says lachatchila you shouldn't. And let's say somebody made a cheese sandwich, already. So what's the din? We say, okay, you made the cheese sandwich already. You made the milchig food. So okay, you can eat it. But the Rambam says is mutter. But that's if it's not banat. Not necessarily is this not banat. Achlek is a poskim and la lachavu machmer to say that it's not banat. The first not was English. It's not. It is not considered to be not banat. So therefore, you can't even b'diavad. It would be a problem if it was put together with cheese. And in many cases like that, the person's heating up a baby bowl. Okay, usually, it's a cliché. Well, I'm gonna have a discussion over here in the poskim because we say lechatchila, we have a mashal, and that it's not hefsek meruba. We consider the cliché is a problem. Okay, but is there a problem over here also? It's a cliché, but a not for not. Okay, we'll discuss more next week. I don't think we're going to get to it this week. Okay, but let's say you should take you want to heat up a baby bottle or something like that. And you're going to put it in, let's say it's a bottle of milk. And you have a, let's say you put it in a parva keli. So we say not parnat. Yeah, you can put in a parva keli. So you say from the milk into the baby bottle, from the baby bottle into the water. Okay, but not necessarily. Because if it's b'shas special, it depends what kind of keli. I'm not sure exactly what would be a practical case that somebody would actually do this. But in any case, if it's b'shas bishul, so then this whole heter of not panat is not necessarily applicable. Okay, we have to learn Sif Gimel. Yes.
If you put the baby bottle, let's say, in a kfart, and that kfart, would there be a problem with that using it in a fleshik sink, or that'll be a keli?
That might be a problem. Yeah, but the cliche anyway, we're gonna have to leave that discussion because we're gonna discuss cliche soon. Probably not today, like I say, a brief mention today, but more later on. Now, Sif Gimel. Okay, Sif Gimel, very, very, very important Sif. Like everything's important here. Hold it, call it Teda Kula, even, the Hilchas Baheres, Tzeras is also everything. Everything's important, but these are things that have the Mamish B'cholyim. The Tzura in which it's brought in Shulchan Aruch is speaking about the more common case that they had in those days. They didn't have sinks in those days, so when it came to washing kalim, what would they do? They would take a pot and they would heat up water. So let's say you take a kedera chaylevis, you took a milchik pot, and you cook up water in the pot. Okay, you need hot water. Where do you get hot water? They didn't have hot water heaters. They could turn on the tap and get hot water. How do you get hot water? You heat up the water again. So you take a pot, you take a milchik pot, and you put it on the fire, and you cook up the water. Kedera chaylevis, fine. And then you wash the kalim. So everybody says, yay, finally time to wash the kalim. They throw all the kalim. They're supposed to throw in milchik kalim. By mistake, they threw in fleshik kalim. Okay. So I'll just mention over here because it looks like something that's a little bit of histir and nachreinim about what do we have to worry that these kalim are dirty or not. So it looks like in Sif Aleph base that we learned before. So brought down from the Rosh, and Chaber said that you have to, if it's clean, it's okay. And if it's not clean, you need shishin. Okay, but we assume, as the Nesa Kalim bring down, we assume that in that case over there, the case of the dog Mishola Bakaira, that we assume normally people before they cook something, they clean it. It's not so hard to clean. What's the big deal to clean it? They clean it. Okay, so we assume that there's no leftover meat over there. But here we're talking about shmutzike kalim. You're washing the kalim because they're dirty. Yes, we have to assume that there's some mamashas on it. Otherwise, why are you washing them? So we assume that they're somewhat dirty. Okay, it doesn't mean that there's huge amounts of food, but there's some mamashas on it, and we have to take that into account. So over there in the previous sifim, we assumed the default mode, so to speak, is that the kalim are clean. If they're dirty, then you have to be mashayah b'shish. Over here, we assume that the kalim are dirty. If you know they were clean, then the din might change. You don't have to worry about the mamashas. Okay, so let's talk about, we're really talking over here, not about the mamashas. We do have to be concerned with it, but we are talking over here about clean kalim. Clean, they're not clean, they need to be washed, but they don't have mashas, they don't have considerable amounts of mamashas on them. So now, what's happening over here? So we have fleshika kalim that were put inside water that was cooked in a milk kapah. So how many timim do we have over here? So this looks like dogim shala b'kaira, right? Let's just treat those 3 fleshika bowls like they're 3 little fishies. Okay, so this looks like dogim shala b'kaira, according to the Rambam and Tosfos, looks like the same case. But why is it not the same case? Because over here, the dogim is not giving out any taste that's a matter of concern to the kaira or the kedera that it's being cooked. It's parv. Over here, the fleshika kalim, which are inside, are giving out tam bosor. So the kedera is giving into the water tam cholov, and the kalim are giving out tam bosor. Okay, so we're talking over here about tam. We're not talking about mamashas now. I mean, we'll see in the Ramah, the mamashas is definitely an issue, but the pure issue that we're discussing over here is tam. Okay, so we have, it's a ben yemei, so we're not going to be able to sneak out of it that way. We're not going to be able to ignore the question by blaming it on the mamashas, because we're assuming over here there's no mamashas. Is this different than the case of dogim shala b'kaira? Does this complicating factor that the dogim became fleshik and they're giving off tam basar complicate things? Because on the one hand, let's say according to the Machab, we say not banat is mutter, passing like Shmuel, and according to we're talking about even not. Fine. So what happened with the milk kedera? Let's think for a second. So we have the tam cholov went into the kedera is tam number 1, and now the tam cholov from the kedera went into the water, not banat latera, because it's water. Now what happens to the tam basar? So the basar went into the fleshka keli, tam number 1. And now the tam went from the fleshka keli into the water. So tam basar into water is also not banat latera. So l'chura, what in the world should be the problem? Okay, let's say everything's a ben yemei over here. That's the first case. Later on, we'll talk about ein ben yemei. So the pot is a milchik ben yemei, and the kite is a fleshka ben yemei. So the Rosh says, no problem, not banat. Hey, we already had a dinner, not banat. It's no different from the other case. Okay, you put flesh in instead of fish. So the Rosh doesn't change the fact that it's not banat latei. However, the das atruma, sefer atruma, is from the early Baalei Tosfos. I think it was the Talmud of the Riyaz Zokin. The Riyaz Zokin, I think, was the Einikol Rabbeinu Tam. So it was earlier. It's from the early Baalei Tosfos. He says, "Oh, Lasser, it's got a problem. We're afraid that the tam basar and tam cholov are going to have an unhealthy contact over there in the water." Okay, the Shulchan Aruch paskins like the Rosh L'Kula, and the Ramah paskins like the Sefer Truma to answer it. The holiday is also last again lechatchila. I mean, it's certainly not better than your regular case of not banat. Any case of not banat, you're not allowed to do lechatchila. This is worse than a regular case of not banat. So this, for sure, everybody holds it's also lechatchila. But what's the din of b'diavad? What's going on over here? So here, matayim shalayis. So there's a Tosfos in the Gemara that kuf yud aleph, kuf yud beis. The Tosfos brings 2 different reasons. Reason number 1, Tosfos says that who says this keli is, we make these nice pictures that the keli is free floating inside, it's doing the backstroke inside the water over there. But who says that this fleshka keli is not going to touch directly the milchika keli? In fact, B'Pashas, it is going to touch the milchika keli. So when it touches the milchika keli, so not banat is when the tam cholov in the kedera goes into the water, it's not banat latera. And when the tam basar goes into the water, it's not banat latera. Okay, but if the 2 of them touch, then the tam cholov from the kedera is going to directly meet the tam bosor that's coming out of the kaira. So that's the first problem with Tesis. This is not a regular case of not banat latera. Shakelim no goes up tam that the tam is going to go straight from the fleisha kakeli into the milcha kakeli and vice versa. So therefore, that's the one svara to treat this differently than a regular case of not banat. Because over there, everything is happening sequentially. You have the tam bosor went into the keli, then the tam went in from the keli into the dogim, and later on, you're going to eat the dogim with the cholov. There's no direct contact of the bosor and the cholov before it already became not latera. Here, they came in contact before it was not banat latera. If it only came in contact through the waters, then each one was not banat latera before they met. But over here, it's a direct contact. That's tam number one. Tam number two. Tam number two is that we're treating. By the way, there's no shishim over here. If there be shishim, the whole story would change. Okay, there's no shishim. So we got tam cholov, which is floating around in this water, and now we got tam bosor floating around in the water. Okay, who says that when, let's say, you're cooking up this water in the pot? Okay, there's tam cholov, which is within that water, and there's no shishim. Now you're going to put in a fleishka keli, a ben yeme, into this klirishim that's cooking. Tam bosor is going to come out of that keli. So we're saying it's not banat latera because it's going to come out into the water. Who says? Who says that the tam bosor is not going to go directly into the tam cholov? We're assuming it's going to go into the water first, but who says? That's the second reason it takes. Shatayim sheyotzu alamayim peishim yishedes says. You can have direct contact between the tam bosor and tam cholov, and therefore you have a problem. So that's the second reason. What's a nafkamina? Let's say the shishim. What happens to the shishim? So if there's shishim in the water, according to the first reason, you're worried about the kelim, we're going to touch each other. We have a problem still. Still have a problem. The keli is still us. Who cares if there's shishim in the water? We're worried that the flesh kakeli and the milcha kakeli came in contact without going through the water first. So we have shishim in the water. What does that help us if the flesh kakeli touches directly the milcha kakeli? Doesn't help us the shishim in the water, then it's going to be us. According to the second reason, okay, good, then everything's going to be mutter. You have shishim, so we don't have to worry after it already came. So the tam cholov, again, we say normally we don't have shishim in the keli. The child is if one of them you have shishim. Okay, we'll get to it. In any case, we don't have to say that we're not worried that there's going to be a tam shalisted because there was batal b'shishim before it met the tam. And now we'll see it inside over here. Oh boy. I'm not going to be able to finish this. So I'm going to skip this slide. If we have time, I'll come back to it. First, I want to learn the din of mechaber. What we're trying to show in the next slide, I'll tell you outside what it's trying to show, and if we have time, I'll show it. Remember, I keep it's almost like hanging over our heads like a threat. This leftover din from Simon Tzadik Dalit. Simon Tzadik Dalit Sif Hey is we have the same din of not banat, but a couple of twists in it. One of the things that we can learn out from that din is that the Shulchan Aruch nemt on the second answer to Tesis. That's what the next slide is made to show, that although Tesis has two reasons, la halacha we hold mainly from the second reason, and in such a case, it's once there's shishim, it's going to be mutter. If we have time, we'll come back to this slide. Because this is, you see on the upper left, this is Tzadik Dalet Sefei, and here it's a kaf going into a gedera, so that's why it's in Tzadik Dalet, because this is a kaf. The only the reason it doesn't really belong there because it's a din of not banat, it's not a din of tichnas and avail. In any case, we'll come back to that possible. Okay, so here's our din over here in Tzadik Hey, Sef Gimel, Kaira Shal Bosor, Shehudchu B'Yerech Haleves. You have fleishik dishes, and you're washing them in a milk kapat, b'chamin sheyad saledis ban, in water that's hot, yad saledis, which means it's enough to prohibit something. Afil shneim b'nei Yeman mutter, says the Mechaber. Mechaber says even they're both a ben Yemei, it's mutter. Mishum dehavil neis and tam bar neis and tam de teva. Not for not. Okay, we'll skip the rest of the Mechaber for now. I go the Ramah. V'yesh eisrim. Yeah, the Ramah's back. Yishem afil ain't shuman davak, and even if you don't have any shuman, there's no mamashas over there. V'hachinei would just do the highlighted parts and leave out all the complications in the middle. V'hachinei gem l'shanis. Okay, so we answered this because we're worried about Asa Teisves. Say for a Truma, who said that we're worried that the Taimim are going to contact each other directly. So that's so that's the issue that we're concerned with over here. But even such a case, the rest of the Ramah has also a bunch of cases we can be making. Okay, if one of them even was not a ben yemei, and not a ben yemei from a klirishin, so then we're going to matter the kalim, and the water we're going to throw out. If the kalim are mutter, why shouldn't the water be mutter? And then if the water is aser, then the water that's aser is going to aser the kalim. What kind of case is this? That the water is going to be aser and the kalim are mutter? So the thing is, because the problem is, this is only b'diavad. L'chatchila, everybody agrees you're not allowed to do this. It's a case of b'diavad. So what do you want? Do you want to be mata water b'diavad? That's a water. That's the union of the whole thing's a b'diavad. Who needs water? Water is very cheap, even if you have to pay to schlep your water. Water is not something that it's a hefset, considered a hefset to throw it out. So throw it out. You can't get hanol l'chatchila from this water. You get no water. Who says you need to get this water? Okay, so that's the first thing. So then everything is mutter. Why that is, we're going to have to come back and discuss. That you don't need both of them to be ben yemei. The basic idea is once one of them is Eina ben yemei, the basic idea, we're going to have to translate it down and go through it more of a proteus to understand it properly. But the basic concept is not difficult to understand. We're matter not latera. We're worried that the tam bosor that's coming out of the keli, the fleshka keli, and the tam cholov is coming out in a milcha keli, are going to mix directly. That's why the Ramah is being machmer. Yeah. So then, what's going to be? It's not going to be napanat latera. It's going to be napanat lisura. That's the problem. Yeah. If it went always through the water, then we'd say that's what the machaber passes. It comes out from the milcha keli into the water. Napanat latera. It comes from the fleshka keli into the water. Napanat latera. They're going to meet later on, but it's through the water. It's all napanat latera. Not a problem. Why? We're worried they're going to contact themselves directly. Napanat lisura. Didn't have a chance to go to the water before the tam cholov went into the Bosor. Yeah, but if one of the two is Eina ben yemei, it's also not manat leisura. Because ben yemei doesn't have the power to answer anything. We answer Eina ben yemei l'chatchila because people are going to get mixed up between Eina ben yemei and ben yemei. But that's not going to make it not manat leisura. It's not manat le'atera. That's the basic idea why it's okay if one of them is Eina ben yemei. In addition, okay, so it has to be, Rama puts one of them, that was hudchu echad achar hasheni. It was zeh chazeh. Avalim hudchu zeh chazeh or b'klisheni afilu b'yachar al kol shari. So it has to be a klirishin. It has to be at the same time. Okay, but if first you put in one keli, then you put in the other keli, then it's different. Let's say it would be a parva pat. It wouldn't be a yerech halevis. Let's say it would be a parva yair. You had a big parva pot, okay? And you boiled up water in the parva pot, and then you put in, you wash the milcha kekelim, and then you took out the milcha kekelim, and then afterwards you put in the flesh kekelim. So then we're not worried over there because we don't have the problem the two timing coming in. The only time we're worried about this whole chash, which is the second reason of tesis, that the milcha katam and the flesh katam are going to go directly from one to another is there at the same time, without going through the water. But if you did one before the other, so then you put the milcha kekeli in the parva water. Okay, so it's already in the water. It's not direct. So now you're going to put the flesher kekeli in. So it had to go through. There's no way that the milcha katam can go to the flesh without going through the water. And so too, if it's not in the klirishin, it's in a klisheni. So then also we're not the Machmer, says the Ramah. And then there's a whole discussion what's going to be with those that are Machmer or Klisheni. Are they going to be Machmer over this Ramah over here? And what's going to be with the Iri Clarition? We got a lot of details to go into in the day. But these are the three basic exceptions to the rule. So now we got a few minutes left. So let me go back to the previous din and see if we can learn this over here. Yeah, so this was over here. We had this din back over there in Sandik Aleph Sepei in the Ramah. And what happened over there, this is a Kedera. We're going to take the spoon. Yeah. Kedera Shabishal Yerakas Omayim. Toch Baba Kaf Ben Yemen. But Kedera Einabas Yemen. Allah. So over there in Sandik Dalit, he's talking about a case where we also have, this is just like our case, really, of Yerech Chalevis. It's no difference. Here we have, let's say, a milcha kapat, and we got a fleshka spoon and a milcha kapat. That was exactly the case that we just learned over there inside the case of Gimel. That's the case we just learned. So what's its case doing back over there inside the Gdalit? We're talking about a kaf. So the whole time the Gdalit is talking about a kaf. Okay, so the Ramah talks over there that we have something parv inside, mayim. That was the case of the Yerech Chalevis. It doesn't matter if it was chveis, applesauce, who knows, potatoes, lakshin, garoni, whatever it is. Okay, one of them was a ben yemei, one of them was not a ben yemei, and you put it inside. So what's the din? So first of all, he says, even if it's not a ben yemei, if there's shishim, everything's okay. Shishim, everything's okay. Fine. That we already knew. Except, everything's going to be also, there's no shishim. Okay, that's the Ramah. Because what would the Mechaber say about such a thing? You would say not parnat. This is the din of not parnat that we just learned in Tzaddik. This is what we learned in Tzaddik Sapalaf and base. That the Mechaber is matter, not panat. Why is it not panat? Because you have the taste of the milk kapar into the water, and you have the taste of the flesh of the keli into the water, and there's no shishim. So the Ramah answers it. Why? Because that's the taste. Like we just learned over there in Siv Gimel. The Mechaber is going to say it's okay. Okay, but according to the Ramah, you're going to need shishim, or you're going to need a saying of ben yemen. In any case, we see over here, this is the proof for what we learned previously. We said that there's two reasons of Teisvis. So what happens if there's shishim? So we said, according to the first reason of Teisvis, that you're worried about this keli is going to touch that keli and the taste is going to go over there directly. So what does it help the shishim? The keli is going to be us. But if it's a second reason, you're worried about the tastes meeting each other directly, so then the shishim, you don't have to worry about it. You go look over there in the Ramah. What is the Ramah passing? The Ramah passing if there's shishim, it's okay. What does that prove to you? That proves to you that according to the Ramah, the yikr is like tam sheni shal teisves. Because if he held like the first time, shishim wouldn't do you any good. If you're worried that there's going to be a bliyah directly from the kaf into the kedera and vice versa, so then what is up to the shishim? Now the shaila is why the Ramah is not worried about that, but that's not for us to discuss right now. Okay, so we covered most of what I wanted to cover, not everything, but we did, I think, pretty good. According to the second reason in the chat, according to the second reason the Teisvis that they meet directly, why does shishim change? They still do not meet directly, because then it already became bottled in the water. It already became bottled in the water before they had a chance to meet. Long as they have shishim. I'm just curious over here, who's Leah? I mean, we have a brewery over here that snuck into the, there's just Noshim over here, or is this, I assume this is from Alma de Dechura. Yeah. Fine. I'm afraid to ask everybody to put on the camera because it's coming up face, show me the ban. Okay. Anyway, any questions?
Is it fair to say that not by not only happens when there's an interruption between the blia and the next blia?
What do you mean?
That while it's being balea, it's not like once you take out the meat from the pot and then you take out the water, you use it afterwards, only then is it not parnat.
As opposed to putting it straight in when the meat is cooking.
Or when if you take out the meat and there's still water cooking or whatever, saying like,
You're asking, let me just clarify the question. Is chicken soup that you took the chicken out of it, not parnat, nice and tam?
well, that has mamashas in it.
Oh, so it's bachal like that. Once you cook a food, it's called mamashas.
Let's say you put that pot into another pot while there's something cooking, or
So then you get into the chakira, the chavas das that we had before in the machlekes, or the b'shas special. You have it. You're asking something else. I don't know. I'm just like avoiding it by saying your case is not exactly what you're talking about. I'm trying to understand exactly what you're asking.
no, that's exactly what I'm asking. I'm saying like, is it fair to say that it's only not parnat while there's no interruption?
B'shas special.
Okay.
Whether b'shas special, not parnat applies, is that machlekes, but I think it's the base mail from the Golden, if I remember correctly. And we're machmer in such a case, if it's b'shas special. Even if there's a keli in between. Okay, Rabbi Sai. Okay, next week, the Mitzvah Shem, we will do Shiur number 14 and finish Tzaddik K. Now, I'm going to be traveling, which as far as, this background, and it's Zoom anyway, so, I could be on the moon for what anybody knows. The only thing is there's not very good internet access. So here, I'm in my house and I know that everything is set up properly, but I'm going to be somewhere else next week. So I fully expecting, and I checked out in advance, that there should be proper internet access over there and everything should go okay. And I'm just mentioning that I don't say extra pittel tillim, but I'm just hoping everything works. Okay, Rabbi, eine gute Nacht. Ob man geringe Tonne ist, noch besser, man happig sein, durch seine Sude gedeelt, together with Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Amen.
All to.
Okay.